Someplace to stay over there.
Ask them to change. I'm in Siberia.
Good evening. I call this meeting of the Magnolia Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. So if everybody please stand, Mr. Adcock's going to lead us in our invocation, and then we'll have our pledges.
Great. Y'all have to deal with my voice a little bit. But it's been a very long-standing tradition here at Magnolia at our school board meetings that a trustee starts the meeting with a prayer. So at this moment, if you would like to join me, you're more than welcome to bow your heads. Dear Father, we thank you so much for all the many blessings that you've given us. We know at times that we may not deserve them, but we appreciate the fact that you're always with us. I'm very, very excited to do this today because I want you to really reach out to our veterans and let them and their families and our active service men and women know just how much they mean to us, not just on this day, but on every day. I ask that you'll especially be with those veterans that struggle when they get back home, and please help them see through that. I ask that you'll be with all of our first responders, our teachers, our students, and all of the MISD family. I ask that you'll be with our kiddos and make sure they're safe in our schools. And I ask that you will help us tonight to make the very best decisions for our entire district. And I ask all of that in your name. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Okay, so we'll do our pledges now. If Cadence and Abby would come up here, you can lead us in our pledge. I guess, Abby, you're going to do the U.S. pledge, right? And then you're going to do the Texas pledge. So just get us kicked off.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, if everybody but Cadence would have a seat, you can stay up here for a couple of minutes.
Good evening, everybody. Board of Trustees, thank you for having us. To my left is Cadence Nixon. She is a fourth grader. We'd like to recognize her, and she has attended Bear Branch Elementary since kindergarten. One of her favorite memories about Bear Branch Elementary is starting as a kindergartner. She remembers her kindergartner teacher, Mrs. Teetman, who's here tonight, as being nice, funny, and always helpful. Her former teacher, Sarah Sadlowski, who is here, commented by saying that Cadence is a very special student to me. She melted my heart last year with her quick wit, her warm smile, generous way, and persistent work ethic. Kim Culberson went on to say that Cadence is such a wonderful young lady. She always gives 100% and works so hard. She is a friend to everyone. She works hard at doing what's right. She is truly one in a million. Cadence's favorite thing about school is learning. When I had the opportunity to visit with her, I asked her what her favorite subject was. And she told me that's a hard one. But she finally came to her decision and settled on math as her favorite subject. Her math teacher, Mrs. Frenzel, said that Cadence has exceptional, unparalleled growth this year. She tries her absolute best every day at school to be the best student she can possibly be. She says that I'm so proud to have a student like Cadence in my class. Cadence's language arts teacher, Mrs. Green, has to say this about her. She's every teacher's dream. She's the first student to greet you with a warm smile, a big hug, and a heartfelt, "How's your day?" She has made a conscious effort to be her best every single day, and I have seen how her hard work has paid off in her academic performance. Cadence's favorite season is winter because she likes to roast marshmallows and drink hot chocolate. When she grows up, she wants to become a veterinarian and help animals, especially cats. Cadence has a younger brother, Gunnar, who is in second grade. They enjoy playing Fortnite together during their free time. And her favorite sport is basketball, and she hopes to one day play for the Lady Bulldogs. When I first met Cadence, she made an initial conversation with me in the hallway and asked, "How's your morning going?" Later that afternoon, she asked me, "How's your afternoon going?" I was struck by her warm and outgoing personality. She is diligent and consistent with her positive outlook on each day, and she takes full advantage of each opportunity that comes her way. We are fortunate to have Cadence on our campus to act as a role model for others. She is a Bear Branch student, showing the guidelines for success of being prepared, engaging safely, acting responsibly, and respecting others. And she is joined tonight by Melanie and Brian Dixon and her mom, Amber Robinson. Thank you.
All right, my notes aren't quite as official as Mr. Kaplan. Mr. Blizzard, Dr. Stevens, members of the board, all of you in attendance tonight, it is my honor to recognize senior Abby Brown. Abby is here tonight with her mom Jennifer and her dad Chris. And Abby has attended Magnolia ISD schools since Smith Elementary when she entered as a fourth grade. She went to Bear Branch sixth grade campus, also Bear Branch Junior High, and has been with us at Magnolia High School for 4 years now. Abby is an IB diploma candidate and continuously challenges herself not only in the courses that she takes, but also by being involved in multiple organizations on campus, such as National Honor Society, Nu Alpha Theta, and as she expressed to me, since she's been a part of them a couple of years, she decided this year would be a good idea to be an officer so she can help give back. She's also a part of Dr. Stevens' student leadership group and also a class of 2020's historian. And though her grades and her study habits are certainly signs of a conscientious student, what really sets her apart is her leadership style. She has a great way of leading others, and not only talking the talk, but she also walks the walk. Always with a smile on her face. Abby is what we would personify as a student that loves, serves, and cares at Magnolia High School. Abby has great things in her future. When I asked her where she planned on attending school, she kind of smirked, and I said, okay, give me a top 5, right? And there are places like CU at Boulder and Cal Poly and UT. We skipped over that one. And Cooper UU, right? And so, but has plans also to be either an architect or an architectural design engineer, right? We're excited to recognize Abby tonight. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what we want to portray in our community as a student at Magnolia High School. We are super proud of her tonight. Thank you.
Now, I'm not through roasting you yet. So congratulations to you, and there's a really good veterinarian school right up the road. Good. We'd highly recommend it. Congratulations to you. You know, y'all, both of you must know, we do this for 2 people per month during the school year, and do the math, we're pushing 14,000 students in our school, so, in our district, so you're in thin air. This is quite an honor, and we congratulate you for it. We look forward to seeing you again. We look forward to hearing where all you're going to go with all the schools you've applied to. And so, Devon's got a little extra something for you. Come on over here.
Thank you.
Must be photo time. awesome young ladies.
Awesome, just amazing, and some outstanding parents. Appreciate their support.
Absolutely. They couldn't do it without you. Okay,
We're fortunate to have you.
I think so. So, Ms. Myers, isn't it?
I think so. This is, it's originally Armistice Day, but somewhere in the 30s and 40s, we changed that, it became Veterans Day. So on the 11th day of the 11th month, and originally on Armistice Day was the 11th hours when World War I actually was called to a halt and signed the Treaty of Versailles at that time. But we recognize all, and now we recognize all of our veterans and those who have served in our armed forces in our country. And we just want you to know that in Magnolia ISD, we take that to heart, and it is a very special day to us. And across the district, we have celebrations in honor of our veterans, and we invite them into our campus. And so we asked Ms. Myers if she would give us some type of visual representation of some of the things that went on today as Magnolia ISD served and honored our veterans. So, Ms. Myers, if you'd like to
Sure.
take it over from here.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. Good evening, Board, Mr. Blizzard, Dr. Stevens. So today, on Veterans Day, we honored all of those that have served and those who continue to serve this great country. It was very heartwarming to see all of our students saluting our veterans and for our administrators using this day as a unique opportunity for bringing learning to life for our students throughout the district. Starting last Friday, our campuses honored hundreds of veterans at various programs. Our students expressed their appreciation to our veterans through a variety of activities, including writing letters to create a large American flag, catered breakfast, lunch for veterans and their spouses, our choirs and bands performing God Bless America and the Military Medley, and at Saturday's event for Flags for Our Heroes, and veterans as special guest speakers talking about leadership and selfless service. We put together a short video of some of the campus highlights. Music in the video is by Bear Branch Junior High and their choir. So enjoy the short video, and again, thank you to our veterans for their service.
Voice of life, will rise and free.
just curious, do we have any veterans in here?
Stand.
Yes, please stand, please stand. Let's acknowledge you guys. We thank you guys for your service and for our freedom. We don't take it lightly, that's for sure. So, that was great. All right,
We're kind of continuing on in this thing. This is Flags for Our Heroes, and we've been doing that for a number of years. Oh, I see here, it's the 10th annual time we've done that. So, Ms. Guston and Ms. Woods, would y'all come up and give us a presentation on Flags for Our Heroes?
I just want to start by saying this is the first time I've been involved with this program, and just to be out at Houston Memorial Cemetery and set out the flags that we set out, and looking at headstones and thinking back to my dad in the Navy, my uncles in the wars, serving in different branches, my great uncles. It was very moving and very emotional for me at that time just to be doing that. So looking at not just a field of headstones, but families and generations behind those headstones. And so this year, Carrie set the goal of wanting to put out 10,000 flags for the 10th anniversary, and we
So
supported.
is this 10 years?
This is 10 years.
Wow, my goodness.
We have a whole new board of trustees.
We've got to turn them over here.
So with nothing, I can't top what the video is that she's gonna have for you guys, except just that I was blessed and honored to be a part of it this year, for sure.
So good evening. Flags for Our Heroes is an annual event offering MISD students, staff, and their families, thank you, an opportunity to honor the memories of United States soldiers and family members who have been laid to rest at the Houston National Cemetery. The event was founded in memory of my grandparents, Charles and Floyd Townsend, who were laid to rest in the cemetery in the spring of 2007, exactly 1 month apart. This year marks the 10th anniversary of our event. At 9 a.m. this past Saturday morning, we were joined at the Houston National Cemetery by approximately 85 staff members, students, and their families, representing 10 MISD campuses. If you've never been to the cemetery, it's truly a beautiful place. There are ponds with fountains near all of the sections, and during holiday weeks, the chapel's bell tower plays a series of patriotic songs, and it happens every hour on the hour during the daytime. And that's actually one of my favorite parts of the entire event each year. So this year, in honor of our 10th anniversary, I recorded the chimes from the bell tower, and I'm using that as the background music for our video. And so you're going to hear the sounds of the cemetery in this short video that I prepared of that Saturday's event.
Thank you, veterans. We should honor our veterans because they were the ones that defended us and defended our freedom. For serving our country. To honor our veterans because since they served, we can pick what church we go to. Thank you for your service. To thank our veterans is because they make our lives free. Thank you, veterans, for serving our country and giving us the freedoms that we deserve.
To me, it's important to remember the people who risked their lives to keep us free.
So that last young lady that you saw in the video was my daughter Grace. And the first year we began our family tradition of honoring the memory of my grandparents with American flags. She was a second grader at Williams Elementary. And as we were leaving the cemetery that first time, she looked at me and she said, "Mommy, it's so sad that there are so many people here who have no one to remember them." And she wanted to find a way to honor the veterans that didn't have anybody to come to the cemetery for them. And so we founded Flags for Our Heroes as a giving feet to what she wanted to do for the veterans. And now she's been active in it all through the years. And she is bringing her friends from Glenn College, and she's a freshman at Glenn this year in College Station. And so it seems like it may be expanding beyond us now as she continues that spirit. So each year, I hold back a few thousand flags for our NJROTC students under the command of Commander Bedell to place at the cemetery on their way to march at the annual Veterans Day Parade in Houston. This morning, they stopped at the cemetery to continue their tradition of placing the final flags from our annual event. Each year, my goal has been to increase the number of flags that we place. Our first year, we placed 1,150 flags. Last year, we placed approximately 7,500 flags. This year, in honor of our 10th anniversary, and thanks to the efforts of our new Social Studies and Advanced Academics Director, Alana Wood, and Marilyn Wood from the Curriculum Office, we were on target to meet my goal of placing more than 10,000 flags. However, when we unloaded the flags at the cemetery on Saturday morning, we discovered that 6 crates of flags had severe water damage that occurred while they were in storage. And due to the severity of the damage, I cannot get an accurate count, but I estimate that close to 3,000 flags were damaged beyond repair. The good news is that we added more than 3,000 flags this year, and I also received a last-minute anonymous donation of several hundred small parade flags, which allowed us to extend into an entirely new section for us along the walls in Section C where cremated remains are interred. With these additions, we were still able to surpass last year's total by placing approximately 8,500 flags during this year's campaign. I'd like to take this opportunity to extend a special thank you for the support of my principals, Claudia Dominguez and Letty Roman, and Williams Assistant Principal Andrea Harper, Secretary Jennifer Smith, and one of our fabulous 4th grade teachers, Marcia McConnell. Their ongoing commitment to Flags for Our Heroes has been essential to the event's continued success. I'd also like to thank Kate Hope and Denise Myers for including us in the Community Impact Insert and generating wider participation in the event this year, as well as MISD administration and the Board of Trustees for your support through the years. The increased support and participation each year gives me hope that Flags for Our Heroes will endure as a Magnolia ISD tradition, long-standing, long after the Guston family is just a fond memory in MISD. Finally, I would like to invite everyone to join us at the cemetery this Saturday, November 16th at 9 a.m. for our annual flag retrieval. Once we have gathered all of our flags, they will be returned to Williams Elementary, where they will be sorted, repaired, and stored for next year's event. And to any veterans who are with us this evening, I offer my sincerest gratitude for your service to our country and your commitment to defending the cause of freedom around the globe. I wish you and your families a very happy Veterans Day. Thank you.
Thank you, that was awesome. You can't get enough of those good flags out there. That's fantastic. Okay, Ms. Wood, you got some more presentations to make for us?
It's about kids, great, isn't it? At this time, if Ms. Fielder and Mr. Parsons, you and your students would come over and join me over here on the side. I think it's easier because otherwise they'll have their backs to you guys, so we'll just be over here. One of my passions are, those of you that know me, is the National Merit Scholarship opportunity for students when they take the PSAT. I stood before you a couple of years ago and introduced some students that were our semifinalists and commended National Merit Scholars. And tonight, I pass that torch on to Ms. Fielder and Mr. Parsons, who's here. They will introduce their students. So there are 35,000 or so commended students in the United States. And you're looking at those commended students here from Magnolia ISD and their efforts and their task of taking the PSAT and taking it seriously. I believe there was boot camp involved, and I think we're making strides in that area. One of the things I always say is every school district, in every high school at least, has the top 10%, and they have top 10 graduates, and they have a valedictorian and salutatorian. Not every high school has National Merit Scholars. So we're pleased to announce those and honor you guys tonight. Parsons, Stewart.
All right, tonight we would like to recognize Madeline Navarro. She's a senior at Magnolia West High School. She scored an index selection of a 214, which allowed her to be commended in the National Merit Scholarship competition. She also qualified as the National Hispanic Scholar. She's currently deciding on a college. Obviously, with her accomplishments, she has many opportunities ahead of her. So she's still pursuing those and figuring out which one she wants to choose. Her parents are Leah and Michael Navarro, and she's taken several AP and IB courses throughout her time at Magnolia West. She has a full load of AP and IB courses this year as well. Last year, she went to state UIL competition for pros, and she also likes to pursue playing guitar and painting and poetry in her off time. So we would like to celebrate.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, school board, Dr. Stevens. Tonight, Magnolia High School is pleased to present 4 National Merit Commended and 2 National Hispanic Recognized students. We are incredibly proud of them. Drew Castleberry. She is the child of Laura Livy and grandparents Sue Haley and Sean Smith. She looks forward to studying biology, pre-med in college. She has been in the MHS band, both clarinet and piano, and has participated in science, both at varsity and junior level. She is a state science and engineering fair qualifier, placed first in the biology individual at the UIL district meet, is a 2019 National AP Scholar, and a member of the National Honor Society and Mu Alpha Theta. All right, McKenna Castleberry. She is the child of Laura Livy and grandparents Sue Haley and Johnny Smith. She looks forward to majoring in biochemistry in college. She has been in Wind Symphony at the first chair oboe and MHS marching band all 4 years of high school. This year is the percussion captain. She has participated in varsity and junior varsity science bowl. She is in 2019 National AP Scholar, the top 1% of the class of 2020, and a member of the National Honor Society and Mu Alpha Theta. All right, Cameron, I knew I'd do it, Kirschning. He is the child of Michael and Casey Kirschning. He looks forward to majoring in chemical engineering. He has played soccer in MHS for all 4 years, participated in UIL academics the past 2 years, has been an active participant in Model UN. He is a member of the National Honor Society, holds a certificate of leadership, and is an IB diploma candidate. Lawson Lowry. He is a child of Clay and Kim Lowry, and the grandchild of Travis and Sally Kankey. He looks forward to studying mechanical engineering in college. He has played varsity basketball for MHS since his sophomore year, was awarded Offensive MVP for 2018-19 season, and is the current team captain. He is a member of the National Honor Society and Mu Alpha Theta. We do have one who's not here tonight, but I would like to recognize Andrew Arvizu as one of our National Hispanic Recognition recipients. He is the son of Lisa Arvizu. Andrew is looking forward to studying mechanical and chemical engineering in college. He was involved in the basketball program in his freshman and sophomore year, and has been employee of Raising Kings, which is where he is tonight, the past 2 years, and is a member of Mu Alpha Theta. And finally, we have Jacob Medina. He is the child of Guadalupe and Joe Medina. He looks forward to studying cybersecurity, information assurance, and upon graduation, be commissioned as an officer in the armed forces. He is a member of the MISD ROTC for all 4 years and currently holds the rank of Lieutenant Commander. He is the adjutant to the Magnolia West portion of the battalion and the commander of Color Guard, which has represented MHS at state for 4 years running.
Let's give these scholars another round of applause.
Fantastic job. We want to know where you guys are going and keep up with you, so don't, keep us posted. Okay, Mr. Davies, are you next?
I believe so.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Stevens, it is always a pleasure to be able to stand up here and brag about such a wonderful group of employees. The Child Nutrition Department is filled with such hardworking and dedicated individuals led by Ms. Kimberly Ollendorf. Since I can remember, these awesome employees have been providing the kiddos with Magnolia ISD with the best customer service one could ask for. Almost 4 years ago, I remember a conversation between Kimberly, Rhonda, and myself about the negative stigma that school cafeteria food has and our challenge to change that here in Magnolia. Kimberly and Rhonda vowed to make that change, and you've heard me often, you've heard me say, the proof is in the pudding. You've also heard me quote statistics such as from 6,000 or just about 6,000 meals served each day to just over 10,000 meals served each day. And I think they've done a super job of standing behind that promise that they made to make food better here in Magnolia. And it was always good. They were always head and shoulders above everybody else, but they vowed that day at that conversation that they were going to get rid of that negative stigma. So once again, I stand here before you to brag about not one, but 2 awards that the Child Nutrition Department earned this past year. The first award that they earned was from the Texas Department of Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller for meeting all the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program requirements assessed during their March 20, 2019 audit, which I have to say once again, we scored a perfect score, which was one of only 2 in the combined 30 years that this group have been auditing campuses. So that speaks volumes in itself about Ms. Ollendorf and her team. The second is the USDA's Turn Up the Beet, not as in turn your radio up, but as in the root vegetable. Turn Up the Beet Award, which recognizes outstanding summer meal programs nationwide. Programs that distinguish themselves by providing high-quality meals that are appetizing, appealing, and wholesome. Districts must demonstrate they are serving a variety of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, dairy products, and culturally appropriate meals each week throughout the program. Our menu showcased a rainbow of colors, including fresh summer fruits like strawberry, watermelon, and peaches. MISD also conducted taste tests with the children and offered nutritional education activities along with the meals. With that criteria, there are 3 categories of Turn Up the Beet: bronze, silver, and gold. And of course, Magnolia wins the gold. We were one of only 15 school districts nationwide to achieve the gold this summer, and we were only one of 3 Texas school districts to achieve gold for Turn Up the Beet. It is obvious with not only all the awards that are coming the way and with the numbers that are continuing to rise. If you've been into the cafeteria lately, not only to see the changes with the food, but also we're getting ready to start a remodel program at one of the campuses that we're excited about. It's clear to see that the hard work and dedication and the love that these ladies, as well as all the others that couldn't be here tonight, what they put forth to making sure that our kiddos have nothing but the best here in Magnolia ISD. So if you would, please join me with congratulating these wonderful ladies. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. That's just awesome. You know, we can't, these kids can't function and do their best in school without good nutrition, so we appreciate that. That's awesome.
It is, it's good.
I think you're next, Dr.
All right.
Campbell. At least you're up there pretending to be.
Ready to go. My name is Floyd Campbell. I work with career and technical education in the district and also fine arts. I was in the district 13 years as a campus administrator before that, and I've worked with some really wonderful people. So people have asked me recently, how's this 2-gig job going? And my nap time has gotten a little shorter, but still get that in. But when I started working with CTE teachers, I noticed quickly that they're some of the hardest working people around and take really a big pride in what they do. And I've also noticed the students that we work with are so respectful and are also hardworking. And we've got lots of good things going on at CTE and Magnolia, and we're ready to take it to the next level. At this time, I wanted to introduce to you a couple people that are here. Ms. Jones in the back, she's one of our ag teachers at Magnolia High School. And then I also wanted to introduce you to Bethany Witten, one of our ag teachers at Magnolia High School. And without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to her, and she'll be introducing you to her students.
Hi, as you said, I'm Bethany Witten. I am one of the ag teachers at Magnolia High School, and this is one of our FFA teams. They are the ag issues team. So at FFA, we have leadership development events where they go and compete against other teams around the district. And for us, our district is not just 5A schools. Our district is all types of schools. And so in this contest, they will discuss a controversial ag topic. They'll talk about the pros and the cons of it. And their job is just to present it to you, and then you get to make your decision on it. But part of their contest is they have to actually give their presentation to people that care. So this is one of their forums, as we call it, so for people that should care, or we hope care. So they will introduce themselves in their presentation. So, y'all ready?
Porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome virus.
African swine fever. Transmissible gastroenteritis. Epizootic pneumonia. All of these diseases have more in common than the fact that they are fatal. Each is a genetic disorder that can be prevented or eradicated by eliminating or changing their associated genes.
Good evening. We are the Magnolia FFA Agricultural Issues Team, here today to discuss the pros and cons of genome editing and its role in our agricultural industry today. My name is Chad Coker, and I have here with me today
Avery Moss,
Mackenzie McDaniel,
Jensen Altum,
and Mackenzie Andrews.
Genome editing is the manipulation of the genetic material of a living organism by deleting, replacing, or inserting a DNA sequence, typically with the aim of improving a crop or animal or correcting a genetic disorder.
When replacing or inserting genes for genome editing, you're strictly using the DNA from the same species, unlike genetically modified organisms, or commonly referred to as GMOs, where you're replacing it with DNA sequences from a completely different species.
In DNA, there are 4 nitrogen bases: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. The structure of DNA is created when adenine and thymine bond together and guanine and cytosine bond.
Everyone receives about 3 billion pairs from their mother and father. With genome editing, we can change or replace a few of these faulty pairs in order to improve the genetic makeup.
So, we basically act like a molecular pencil to erase, rewrite, remove, or add genes to advance our livestock.
Animal scientists have found a way to edit the genes of our livestock, using their own genetic patterns to help fight diseases while improving our production. Which, I don't know about you, but to me that seems like one huge step in the right direction for our industry.
In 1974, Beatrice Mintz and Rudolf Janisch were able to create the first successfully recorded transgenic mouse that survived. However, it did not pass on its edited genes to its offspring.
Further attempts were made in the early 1980s on mice, but had severe limitations, such as death due to the inaccuracy of DNA strands used.
In 2007, Janisch was able to find and replace the gene that causes sickle cell anemia, a disease that causes red blood cells to be abnormally shaped and for them to die much earlier than normal healthy cells. Being able to edit this gene would mean being able to prevent this disease.
Sounds like this gene editing stuff is going to have a positive impact in our lives and the agriculture industry.
You can't make that assumption, Mackenzie, simply from one example where it worked.
Okay. Let's not get wound up this early into it. Let's dig a little deeper into these transgenic animals and hear from Mackenzie Andrews and Jensen Altum about the positive aspects gene editing can have on our industry. And later, Avery Moss and Mackenzie McDaniel to discuss the disadvantages of the use of this process in agriculture.
Imagine a world where genetic diseases were virtually wiped out or completely preventable. One where we didn't lose millions of dollars due to livestock death from these diseases.
A world where our livestock animals are not suffering from diseases that are being passed down to them from generations of sick ancestors.
You know, they say good food starts with healthy animals.
That brings us to pro number 1. With genome editing, we will improve the health of our livestock and the animal agriculture industry as a whole.
Porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome virus, or PRRSV, has been one of the major causes of death in swine production since it was first reported in 1987. On average, each year, this disease causes $660 million worth of damage to our industry. I'm not sure anyone's prepared to lose that kind of money and still stay in the black, financially speaking.
If PRRS is a virus, then why don't we create a vaccine? Wouldn't that be much easier than invading these animals' genetic codes?
I see your point, Chad. However, the vaccine that has been created in order to prevent this disease has been unsuccessful, with only 7% of the pigs vaccinated being resilient to the virus. Less than 10% doesn't exactly give me the confidence that we have nothing to worry about.
Did you know that it has been found that a certain protein actually triggers PRRS, which causes the virus to attack their reproductive and respiratory systems? If we can edit the gene that regulates the production of this protein, then ideally, the pigs will be resistant to the disease.
PRRS is commonly known as the stress gene in pigs. And if you've had any dealings with pigs, then you've most likely heard of this life-threatening disease, which causes the animal's respiratory system to fail.
Ridding the industry of this devastating disease would be nothing short of a phenomenon for all hog farmers in the United States.
Not only focusing on PRRS, transmissible gastroenteritis, or TGE, is a disease that destroys the cells of the jejunum and the ileum, which are parts of the small intestine. Basically, the animal dies from their digestive system being unable to function.
So you're telling me that we could potentially eliminate a single disease by creating transgenic embryos that do not carry the protein, like for porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome, rather than having to cull out every animal with that gene from our breeding system?
Oh, you're exactly right, Chad. That leads us to pro number 2. There will be physiological improvements in a single generation rather than generations of selective breeding where results could be unknown.
Over time, the animal agriculture industry has utilized what we like to call as selective breeding in order to enhance our animals and to capitalize on the traits that we find desirable in our production animals.
Using selective breeding could take multiple generations to get the results we are intending to create. Unfortunately, there is no guarantee that the offspring created from two specific parents is going to be exactly what we anticipate. Sometimes those animals inherit all of the negative genes rather than the positive.
When we edit the genes of animals, we can change or replace the exact gene that causes a negative characteristic, and be certain that those qualities will not phenotypically appear in our animals, as they are no longer carriers of the gene.
Did you know that you could perform gene editing as early as the embryo stage? Therefore, we could edit their genetic makeup to the point that they will pass on the edited gene rather than the original to their offspring.
So you're telling me that we could potentially eliminate a single disease by creating transgenic embryos that do not carry the protein for porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome, rather than having to call up every animal with that gene from our breeding system?
Yep, wouldn't that be the perfect solution?
I don't know about perfect. Remember, we don't live in a perfect world.
Okay, fair enough. Let's continue on with our final pro for today. With genome editing, we will experience growth in the food production and an increase in the quality of food that we're producing.
It is believed that the output of the agriculture industry must increase by 60% in order to meet the demands of food for a rapidly growing population. In order to do this, something has to give to increase production.
Genome editing can facilitate improvements through increasing the frequency of favorable traits, such as the myostatin gene, which causes an increase in muscle growth. Therefore, our animals will be able to grow much quicker and we can produce them much faster.
Not only will we be able to increase production and how quickly we produce it, we will be able to better ensure that the animals are healthy and more likely to live to full development.
We have been able to double the amount of lean pork meat per kilogram of feed over 45 years. Imagine having results like that in one generation. Our industry would skyrocket.
Thank you, McKinsey and Jensen, for showing us the positive aspects genome editing can have on our industry. Now, let's hear from Avery Moss and Mackenzie McDaniel to discuss the drawbacks of the use of this process in agriculture.
GMOs, aren't those unhealthy with detrimental side effects?
That's what we typically hear when presenting GMOs to the general public, which leads us to con number 1. There is a huge misconception that genome editing is harmful to living organisms, and they are believed to be the same as genetically modified organisms.
As we have already stated, we are not talking about genetically modified organisms. Disease-resistant tomatoes and corn are not the topic of today's conversation. However, it can be a common misconception that they are.
I mean, it's not hard to see why most people don't know the difference. After all, they are both genetically modified. It's just the difference in the source of the good genes being put into the organism.
As an agriculture industry, if we want transgenic animals to be an option in our production livestock, we need to strategically advocate to the general public about what they are and how they impact the food we consume.
You're exactly right, Mackenzie. As agriculturists, we should all take an active part in educating our peers about the importance of animal agriculture.
It is possible that if people knew that the genes being inserted are from the same species, they would be more likely to accept gene editing over full-blown GMOs.
That's a great point, Avery. Knowledge is power, and education gives people the power to understand where their food comes from, understand how the industry is changing, and take that information regarding their stance on their food and how it is produced.
You're exactly right, Chad. That brings us to our next point, con number 2. The process itself is costly, and the pathway to approval and the research associated with it causes it to be even more expensive.
Although the first transgenic animal was created over 10 years ago, we are far from perfecting the process and making it a household procedure done by every agriculturist in the country.
The CRISPR technology was introduced in 2012 and was a game changer in the genome editing field by turning it into a much simpler and more efficient process.
CRISPR was also able to create standardized protocol for creating transgenic mice in the lab, and researchers working with CRISPR have also experimented on many livestock species.
For example, chickens have been edited to create eggs that are hypoallergenic and can be consumed by individuals that typically have an allergy to the eggs or the hormones within them.
CRISPR has also edited goats in an effort to remove 2 genes that suppress hair and muscle growth, aiming to boost the industry's income.
Another example is their editing on cattle. CRISPR has been utilized to introduce a gene that causes cattle to be polled, meaning they will not produce horns. This is done in an effort to increase safety and decrease pain to the animal.
As you can see, a great deal of research has been conducted in order to hone in on the ability to use gene editing. However, research is not free. Therefore, millions of dollars have been spent on this feat.
It has been said that one gene edit could cost anywhere from $400,000 to $2 million.
I'm doubtful that any farmer or rancher is going to be able to pay that kind of money.
Sounds like this gene editing stuff isn't quite on the horizon for everyday agriculturists.
Unfortunately, money isn't the only thing holding us back, which leads us to con number 3. There are currently no regulations for regulatory use. Therefore, those will need to be created in order for genome editing to be used regularly.
The United States Department of Agriculture, or the USDA, and the Federal Drug Administration, or the FDA, are responsible for the regulation of all things related to our food system, including the consumption of genetically modified products.
In 1994, the USDA approved the use of GMOs in our food systems for crops such as fruits and vegetables. Over time, we now see disease and pest-resistant products throughout our grocery stores.
As of now, the only approved transgenic animal that can be used for consumption is salmon. In 2015, the aqua-advantaged salmon was edited in order to introduce a growth hormone gene that causes salmon market time to decrease from 3 years to 18 months.
Modifications such as these are considered a food additive. When individuals see those terms, they typically shy away from those products. Unfortunately, it's not always what you believe it to be.
Although we've been able to get genetically modified crops and fish approved for consumption, it will be difficult for livestock species to be. The general public look at genetic modification as unethical and less acceptable when performed on animals, especially livestock.
On a side note, Australia actually just amended their regulations so that they will no longer control the use of gene editing techniques in plants, animals, and human cell lines that do not introduce new genetic material. So basically, as long as you stay within the species, they have no regulation.
I'm not sure the United States and its citizens would prefer their government to be that relaxed on regulations for gene editing. But it's reassuring to know there's a possibility for acceptance.
Thank you, McKinsey and Jensen, for showing us the positive aspects genome editing can have in our industry. And thank you, McKinsey and Avery, for showing us the difficulties agriculture has to overcome for transgenic animals to be a reality in our future. Let's review our pros once again.
Pro number 1, improve animal health and immunity.
Pro number 2, improvements can be made within 1 generation of livestock.
And pro number 3, growth in our food production and quality.
And our cons?
Con number 1, the misconception of what genome editing is.
Con number 2, the expense of the process and research.
And con number 3, the lack of guidelines for regulatory use.
Thank you.
Tonight, we want to wish the team well as they compete. Also, over here, I want to introduce you to a new BFF of mine, Miss Waits, that walked in. She's from the high school, Magnolia High School Ag Department, and Andy and Walter back there. And so, thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate your support.
Wow.
That was amazing. There was a lot of words I can't pronounce or don't know the meaning of, but that was really cool. That was awesome. Great job, guys and gals. That was really neat.
Amazing.
It is.
Proud of those kids.
It
We'll take a
is.
little break and be able to pat them on the back before they get out of here.
Well, that's right. So for those who don't want to stick around for the business part of the meeting, you're free to go during our break. But before you leave, make sure, like Dr. Todd said, congratulate a lot of sharp students we got running around here. So, thank you.
But no. Yeah, that's the key. No, he just got here. Just now noticed he's here. I didn't even say hi. He was I know.
We're ready. We're born ready.
All right, it's got quiet.
Must be time.
Okay.
It got cooler, too.
That's true. Okay, before we begin the audience participation segment of this, I wanted to read this preamble just as a reminder or a refresher to some. As the Magnolia ISD Board of Trustees and as set forth in the Texas Education Code, we are here to set goals, adopt policy, adopt budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and communicate the district's vision for success to the community. It is not the role of the board to make day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operations of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent, who the board collaborates with to ensure our goals are reached. This is a public meeting of Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. School board meetings are open to all who wish to attend and hear the matters discussed. Audience participation is limited to the public comment portion of the meeting. Any person disrupting the meeting will be asked to leave. So with that, Ms. Hinkle, do we have anybody signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll move right along.
Could have said that first, right?
That's right. That's right. All right, you.
So this is my portion.
That's right.
Secretary.
We keep getting confused, or at least I do.
We have a fairly new director appointment. Alana Woods is our new social studies and advanced academic director. It's easy for me to say. And she is going to lead us off tonight with a advanced academic report.
I'm going to preface it by saying I do not have the animation of Susie Johnson, but I will try to keep your attention as best as I can. First off is working. Is the clicker? Is that the clicker? Please.
There you go.
There we go.
There we go. Good, thank you. Good evening. I want to begin once again by saying I have appreciated all the help that Susie's been giving me over the past several weeks, getting adjusted to this position. I want to thank you guys, thank all of you for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. As I've said in front of teachers and in front of administrators, this is a position and a dream come true for me. I feel this is my passion and want to do what I can to help improve the advanced academics program from the ground up. And I feel like I've had plenty of experience in which to do that, and I value this position, and I value the fact that you guys have allowed me the opportunity and made this position available, and I'm happy to serve you guys. So with that said, this is the November Advanced Academics Report. It'll look a little familiar from what you've seen in the past, with just some numbers adjusted, but we go first with, as we begin, our goal is to prepare the students from elementary to secondary and to have the tools that it takes to not only be successful in advanced academic courses that they take, but to also have the confidence to perform on AP and IB exams, along with exams such as the PSAT, the SAT, the ACT, the TSI, as they step into those rooms. I feel that, and I've shared with teachers too, that I feel that confidence is a huge issue that some of our students need to develop more of when they step into this realm, into these realms. Feel also too that our systemic expectations of the advanced courses at the high school level needs to be set, and the expectation is there, so when teachers come and go, the new teachers come into this, then they will see these are the expectations of our programs, this is how it is, not let me feel my way around and how much can I get away with, so to speak. So hopefully we have the high expectations established for those programs, and it'll be a huge factor in the success of our students. So with that said, we'll look at the 2019 ACT performance. You'll see that in the areas of English and math, there was a little dip, but I will let you know that according to the state, most of the dips in our numbers and the dips in the subject areas are parallel with statewide dips as well. And so we'll see that there was a little decrease in the ACT participation from our students. I know the ACT has declined as well across the state, and ACT is making a huge push to try to get more students to sit for that exam. They're becoming weighing in more so with National Merit Scholar opportunities too, and being that validation along with the SAT, where that hasn't been happening before. So this is something new that they're starting. They're pushing more of we'll talk a little bit in moments in a few moments about the SAT, the school day SAT. ACT wants to provide this as well and have a day during the school week where they can provide the ACT as well. So those are our numbers for this year. Any questions on that? Okay, the next slide is the percent of ACT tested students that are ready for college level coursework. So what ACT does, they take they set the bar for what a benchmark of what a score is for students in each of these subject areas, and how prepared are they for college level coursework. And you'll see that English is the strongest, and we're the maroon bar. We have outperformed the state as far as percentage of college level readiness, and according to the ACT. So we're up in English, algebra, the social sciences, biology, and then those students that have met all four of these areas and being prepared for college.
So Ms. Wood, we were consistently across the board above state averages on the first graph chart and on this one too.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Switching over to the SAT. Nationwide, there's a 4% increase of test takers for the SAT. 43% of the students who took the SAT nationwide took it on SAT school day. We had a 9% increase of test takers as well. I feel that the more students sit in front of this type of an examination, the more confident they'll be as they continue to take these exams. So we did have an increase of almost 50 students because of our SAT school days at both campuses this past year. And we did see a little dip as far as the performance of our students. But once again, we're opening up to students who probably wouldn't take a Saturday to go take an SAT at an alternate location. And so we're putting them in front of an exam and giving the experience of a national exam. And so I feel the increase in the number of the participants will help pull up the strength of our scores as we have more students sit in front. Also, we had professional development last week, and we took some of the teachers at the junior and senior level and gave them rubrics from the SAT, the ACT, TSI, and had them look at question stems, so that not only are their courses going to be modeled around or preparing for those students for the AP and IB exams, but they're also going to be gauging the rigor of them so that they'll be comfortable and confident when they take the SAT or the ACT. So we'll have a concentrated focus on that. PSAT results will come back in December. We'll take those results and put those in front of 10th and 11th grade teachers. So we'll prepare those 10th graders in the spring to take the PSAT in the fall year. And we'll prepare those 11th graders to perform better on the SAT or fill those areas of weakness on the PSAT, and use what the PSAT's intent is to look at the data and focus on those weaker areas and better prepare them for the SAT as they take those in the spring before they do their college applications in the summer. So that's a plan that we've got in place for the spring. Moving on to our advanced placement program, as I tell teachers as well, I'm not about programs, I'm about students. And so I value each of the programs and the opportunities that they offer to the students depending on how they learn and how they feel comfortable being assessed. So you'll see we had an increase again in our AP students in the last year, and the total exams have increased as well. Although our scores of 3 or higher decreased and our percentage decreased, once again I parallel that with the SAT participation, and the more students we have taking these types of exams and preparing for the rigor of these exams, the better prepared they will be for college. APs adds that students perform 3% higher by taking the AP exam. Not just by going through the course, but taking the exam, that students perform between 3 and 4% higher or better in college just because they've had the rigor of that culminating exam at the end of the course. We've started looking at the advanced teachers' classrooms with several of the directors, and we've looked in those classrooms trying to find ways where we can help those teachers strengthen the confidence and the skills of those students prior to the test. IB program in its 3rd year. starting to get a stabilized number with participants, but you'll see that the numbers have increased over the first year. We're having more students take courses rather than go the full diploma program. So I feel our students are recognizing those areas where they feel confident, where they can get the credit and the credit and the experience from an IB course with those areas where it's being provided solidly for them, for lack of a better word. But feel, in talking with the IB coordinators, feel it's important for a program to have those 2 cogs or 3 cogs in the wheel for the HL courses. And usually it's history and English, those are highest enrolled. And then you find what's that third one that students can rely on to be that HL course where they can gain the points that they need for the diploma. And so we're manipulating and still trying to feel our way out and get some consistency with that third cog in the wheel of the 6 courses that they're required to be successful in for the diploma. Total exams, 397, so still about maintaining the same numbers. Scores dipped a little bit with IB as well, and the percent of 4s dropped just a little bit. However, that dip in the IB is still above the U.S. average, so we're still holding cold with the U.S. average and just slightly below, or just below the global average. So we have an increase in IB certificate students, which kind of adds to the numbers too.
Are you seeing the IB students taking the AP tests also?
Not as much as, hopefully that will start building more so. In my experience when I was teaching the IB English class, that we would have our junior IB students take the AP senior exam and the AP junior exam. I think it's still right now a little green for our students and the teachers as well. I think just trying to get their feet solid on the ground. And once they become more solid with that, would like to see those numbers and have them take both as well, just sitting, because the exam load's lighter the junior year than the senior year. So.
But these numbers are above the, you said national average?
Yes, ma'am. As far as our diploma, or IB diplomas, 51 candidates the first year, 35 diplomas awarded. 52 candidates last year, 26 were awarded. This year we have 40 candidates, both campuses included. And then went and got numbers from Jeremy and Derek. We're sitting at 53 diploma candidates as juniors right now. There's a breakdown for this year with Magnolia West with 31 candidates and 16 awarded diplomas. MHS with 21 and 10 diplomas awarded. Just we introduced tonight the National Merit Scholars. My philosophy is it starts a little bit younger than high school. We can't just do a boot camp the year before the PSAT exam. I think these students need to learn how to love learning and how they learn and build those solid foundations for them before they take these exams. And so with that said, the House Bill 3 has passed a new GT plan. And this is just a brief timeline just to kind of give you an overview of it. And I've been spending some time with our 3rd and 4th grade and our 5th and 6th grade, just because I feel that that's where the foundation is. With our REACH program in 3rd and 4th grade, had a little cardboard car show at the Magnolia Bowl, and then with the lead at 5th grade, the lead program. Here's the timeline that the state has set forth with the new GT plan. Obviously August was when school started. September the 1st is when the plan was implemented. It's going to phase in over 3 years till districts complete the implementation of the plan. And so October on Snapshot Day, we were asked to decide, we had to have all of our GT students identified, and then how we were serving those GT students needed to be identified. And then in June, when we started talking budget and such, then the funding that's provided for GT, it all went into the same lump fund in the allotment, but we still need to certify how we're using those funds. Talk to you about mention the district codes. This is something new this year. Like I said on Snapshot Day, Seth and I sat down, and these are the 5 options that the state gives districts to. You can click on as many as you want. You can select as many as you want, and how you're serving your GT students. We have selected code 01, which is pull out, which is primarily for our REACH and our LEAD students, which is part-time services in the classroom other than the student's regular class that takes place in a regular schedule, and primarily at elementary and middle school. We also chose code number 4, which is full-time inclusion, which is the majority of the core subjects with peers who are not identified as gifted and talented. This is what we see K through 12 and how we serve our GT students. Across the state, options 1 and 4 were the most frequently chosen. Lastly was the this week at TASB, presentation with when there's a school board update and the policy update comes through. There's the legal that comes from them that will talk about how we certify the use of funds, and then we have the option as a local district to adopt our own or to select their adoption policy. That's just a brief overview. It's a several pages document with a new GT plan. There's a lot of pieces to it, and we're slowly but surely working through all of those. Most of them were already in place, and so we're just polishing up what we already have. I just want to once again reiterate how excited I am about the challenges and working with advanced academics. I've met a lot of people this year, and I've enjoyed meeting people, getting to know them. I've seen faces, and it's been a pleasure getting on campuses and seeing teachers and administrators work with our students.
So we're excited to see how your leadership will have an effect on our advanced academic. I know we're going to start with our GT programs, our younger kids, and keep building it up. And although the state has maybe pulled some of that funding or not quite coded it the same, we're not going to put any less of an effort and intensity and local funds on our GT program. We're going to continue to build that, and one of the top-notch programs, so it will support what we have in our high schools a little bit on farm.
It starts with a solid foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a bunch. We appreciate that update. Dr. Hebert, I guess you're next.
We do have Dr. Hebert up there, it looks like, right now. And tonight we're going to have 2 presentations on board goals. And as board knows, we have 3 goals currently in place, and we're going to review those from the curriculum side and also from the financial side. We'll get to the security and student side of that next month. But as we review them, we're going to be looking at some additional ways we may kind of relook at the goals and how we'll be looking at those going forward. So Dr. Hebert's going to start off that discussion tonight on the curriculum side of it and give us some targets that we can watch and benchmark throughout the remainder of this year and check our progress. Dr. Hebert?
Well, good evening. Thank you for being ready to listen to what we call Goal 1 in Magnolia ISD, and that is the achievement of our students. And really the prime thing that we're all about with everything else supporting what goes on around that. And so I know last month I spent a lot of time talking to you about the A through F rating system and all the complexities that go with that. And one of the things that we really wanted to take a look at, because obviously when we look at our district and we see the things that our students are capable of, just as we saw tonight, in all areas our students are able to do amazing things. We want that to show in the way that the state report card shows that as well. And so we want to set our sights on an A and do the things in a very complex system that can help us move forward. And so what we've tried to do is take a look at an existing goal and find the ways on how that can help push us forward and leverage the things that we know, that we can watch, and we can have hopefully some prediction about what we can do moving forward so that we can look toward having an A. We've had a goal for quite some time, and I think you can see that in the students that we celebrate in our board meetings, that we will develop and enhance a culture that values outstanding instruction and high achievement for all of our students all the time. And that is our district goal that kind of drives what we are. It's more than just about some numbers on a page. It's who our students ultimately become, the achievements that they're able to make. But we've taken the STAR goal, and this is the one that we began to work with last year, because we've seen many times we'll be doing very well and be above the state level, and that's where we expect to be. And as the state level improves, we should improve and keep that gap in front of the state level and really start even to widen the gap and become really a leader in the state in what we're doing, not only in the classroom, but that shows on the STAR performance as well. And so we are looking to have a goal in the 3 passing categories of approaches, meets, and masters, all 3 categories, to be 5 to 10 points above the state level. And that gives us something at every grade level, every level in the system, every content area to look at and measure, and with the goal of advancing those scores to earn A in the state accountability system. Now that's one way of looking at it. I know that all of our campuses also, as we talked about last time, are focused on individual student growth, and they are watching the performance of students individually as well, not just collectively in percentages. So because both of those together can advance what we do in the state accountability system, but ultimately ensure that each kid is meeting his potential as he moves through our system. So I just wanted you to know this is one piece of the pie, but it's a way that we can watch throughout the year. And we'll talk about some of the data that you'll be able to see as we're watching our performance toward those goals. And so if we just go back and look at our state performance last year, I'm going to break it down by subject area so that you can look and see which areas are kind of target areas for us based on last year's STAR performance. We don't want to live in that land, but we also know that we have some areas that we need to push forward and work to improve. And so you'll see based on this chart, we have approaches, meets, and masters there as the categories and how we look compared to the state. And with that goal of being 5 to 10 points ahead, you can see the areas in green, we're close to that or surpassing it already, but the areas that are in red, we're actually below the state average, which of course is not the place where we want to be. And so we've marked those as actually target growth areas for this year. And you know, for a few years in a row, we've had 3rd grade reading come up as one of those areas that we're needing to look to improve. And that, of course, is a result of all of the years that they've had leading up to 3rd grade reading test. You know, 8th graders taking, 8-year-olds taking a STAR exam, they haven't had that many years on the earth. And so all of those times that they've spent in preparation are all leading up to that 3rd grade year. So we're going to look at some data according to that. Also, 5th grade was quite a change this year as we transitioned to the intermediate school. And taking, at the elementary, they would have 100 students to focus on approximately, and now we put them all together and there were 500. So that's requiring a new system, and we have a lot of things in place now that they're not a new school that on both sides of the district that we feel like will be supporting them in meeting the achievement levels that they've gained in the past. Now if we go to math, we'll see once again we have those 3rd grade and 5th grade, and of course 4th grade's there in the middle. They're doing well, and we want to keep that moving forward. And so those are areas that certainly we're looking at to target and improve. We have some other areas we're doing well in there. You'll see 6th grade and 7th grade math are in 2 of the categories, almost reaching that goal, and working on master's level performance. Now you'll see that 8th grade is in blue. It's kind of its own category because it's tested so differently across the state. Some have a lot of students taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade, some don't offer Algebra 1 in 8th grade, so the actual population at each school is really different, so it's hard to measure that against a specific average. So we just watch that goal. We always want it to be as high as possible, and we want to push that up into the 90s for the approaches and make goals that are higher than that for next year. Then when we look at the other tested subjects, you'll see fourth grade and seventh, and that the writing, the ELA, remember we've talked about this for some time. The passing standard for the writing test is one of the highest that there is, and it's also very subjective on how it's graded. And it's probably one of the most difficult individual skills to achieve because it's output driven rather than what you input. And so we, a few years ago, we were significantly behind the state average, 7 to 10 points. And so even though the data doesn't show it here, that has been significant growth to be almost at the state level. And then we're going to push forward with that. We feel confident that we have a plan that's moving forward. But as always, as you heard tonight in the legislative update, the state will be changing the test in the next few years, and there will be writing at every grade level and not just at 4th and 7th grades. But you'll see in science, they're doing very well in relation to the state and how they are performing, and also social studies. They're already meeting that goal, and so we just want to keep raising those goals to get higher and more points in the accountability system and celebrate those student successes. So then we go to high school. You'll see lots of green there that we are certainly outperforming state averages there on the high school subjects, except for Algebra 1, and that's kind of a fluke just from last year. And this year particularly, we have put, they have a new plan in place. Teachers have some common planning at the high school level. And also, they've made some key personnel changes, new materials that they're using, and some things that we feel like will certainly take that back to the level of achievement that they've had in the past. So what we've done beyond that is taken all of those numbers that you've seen, and certainly you won't memorize these, but these will be numbers that we'll be working with the principals in looking at their performance all throughout the year. These are based on the goals that, these are goals that are set higher than the performance from last year, but are also attainable in each level. And if we take all of these and do the star magic and all that multiplying and dividing that they do to come up with the student performance number for domain 1, if we meet all of these goals and also have this college and career and military readiness standard go higher, and that number is already there, that data is already in for us to see for last year's graduates. All of these as goals together would put us in the A category for next year. So some of them don't look so high. This third grade reading was a lower number, but we pushed it up to a reasonable level. We don't think you're going to go from a 75 to a 90 immediately, but we're pushing it forward. But all of the goals would put us in line to have an A in the accountability system. So as we move forward, we're going to look at basically 3 target areas from that data set. The first one, of course, is back to the third grade reading. We'll look to increase our early literacy development up through third grade and really watch, starting with kindergarten, how they're developing those literacy skills and build that up to being really strong in third grade. We will be using a couple of different things, and I'll have Shay Garland will be up in just a moment to talk to you about some of the measures that we'll be using to show you data on how the students are doing, and we'll have 3 reporting periods for you to kind of so you can watch how we're watching that through these elements. We'll do one in November, we'll do one in February, and then we'll be able to have a final report in June because those last round come are in May, and they'll be after the May board meeting. But we'll be able to also correlate how that's looking in conjunction with STAR scores as they come in the summer. Then also in English, Language Arts, and Reading, we want to increase the performance in all grade levels. And we'll be able to show you from our district common assessments, which are actual questions from the STAR test, and then from the state interim assessments that they're providing to us as a way of giving us data and measuring how our students are doing. And we'll give those November, February, and April timelines on being able to show you that data. And finally, we're going to work on math performance in those 3rd through 5th grades and use the state screening test that they provide that's beginning, middle, and end of year, and also the state interim assessments to be able to give you some data points in those timelines. So before I turn it over to Shay Garland and Susie Johnson to be able to show you some of that, do you have any questions on where we are in relation just to the goals and how we arrived at those?
Just a clarification question on the STAR testing. The 3 categories, approaches, meets, and masters, those 3 categories are all passing?
Yes.
According to the STAR test, those 3?
Yes.
Because I know it's confusing sometimes to people when they hear approaches, meets, and masters at all 3 of those.
Yes, they are all considered passing the exam. Only the category of did not meet standard is considered to be a failing score. Those who are approaches now meets gives us certainly more points, and masters, we want our students all to continue to get essentially a high B or an A on the test. But you know, the tests, as you've seen through many of the news articles that you've read, are set up at a pretty high level. And so we're working hard to make sure that our students are ready to perform at that level. But yes, all 3 are passing standards.
Approaches was a wonderful word choice.
Yes.
Because it confuses.
It does.
Approaches confuses people. They
Well,
don't
and that's
understand
why
that it-
we're watching all 3. And as you remember from the domain 3, the closing the gaps chart is a lot based on that meets level performance. And so we're putting, you know, we really want to build that level of performance for our students as well.
I wish they'd use the word passing instead of.
It would be so much more simple,
It's
wouldn't it?
confusing.
You're either passing or you're not.
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of a difficult question. I mean, I know it's not all about the numbers, we're more than that. But some of the grades and some of the subjects were killing it, and others not so much. And the others that are not so much has been going on for a while, like the 3rd and the 5th grade, that kind of thing. What can we as a board do to help? It's a loaded question, it's an unknown question. What can we do to help so this time next year, we don't have those same kind of continued gaps? And maybe you're gonna answer that later tonight. I don't know with the other presentations, but we've gotta climb out of this somehow, and I don't know what we can do to help do that.
Well, it's certainly a complicated issue, and I know that we have the leadership in place that's looking at that and working with our principals, our teachers on an actual daily basis to help them be aware and have the skills and tools in their toolbox to be able to do that. Also, just as we're looking at allocation of funds for resources, we have some, and some are new this year with our new state adoption for reading, and we also have some new funding from a math grant that Susie will tell you about. Those things come in and help us to get resources that are also help us to track how students are doing, but also increase their performance. And there are times that we do talk, to Dr. Morris about ways to fund those things, and certainly Dr. Garza has been and working with our federal and state special funds have been able to put that together. But as we look at packages that we need for that, those are things that we might come to the board and say we need this additional tool in our tool belt to be able to support. Probably technology becoming part of a blended learning environment is something I think we'll be looking at over the next few years, especially as the state goes to online testing. We need our students working in that environment to be very familiar with it as well. So we'll probably be talking with you about some ways that we'll be supporting additional technology in our district as well.
One way it would seem is that you set a goal that the end achievement would be that our kids would meet success on those tests, and then you ask the district to make sure we provide some benchmarks at a regular time that gives some status checks of where our kids are moving on that, and that's exactly what you're doing tonight. And you'll be receiving updates regularly throughout the year of the status of our kids on their reading level and in the mathematics and the ELA portion, and we can see, are we moving, are we making some gains there, and these things, and some questions we should ask are the benchmarks we're seeing, are those going to be concurrent with seeing results in STAR as we move along? But that's what you're creating today as we move forward. And that's, I think, our next reports are what those benchmarks are going to look like.
Okay, Dr. Conklin?
Well, I just, observation, I guess, the two sides to it. One, everything that you gave us is, I think from a positive standpoint, you know, the third grade and the fifth grade seems like it always comes up, but then by the time you get up to junior high, we've got green across the board. So that's a positive to me. So we're doing something right, because by the time those kids get to junior high, they're getting it, right? I guess the other side of that would be, when we look at similar districts to ours demographically, and I know that's hard, and you guys probably don't have that information in front of you, but are these similar issues with other districts in those grade levels as far as struggles where we're at? Because I feel like every time we look at these charts, you know, by the time they get 6th, 7th, 8th grade, it seems like everybody's catching up, you know, but that the initial side of that, maybe the pre-K program, where we're going to be doing a lot more pre-K, and that's going to help us as well. But I would be interested to know what the statistics are from a median standpoint across the state in grade schools, and are they similar to what we're going through? Not that that is an excuse, but
No,
it's
I
just
think
it's interesting.
certainly the third grade is been a challenge at the state level, and you see that in the things that are in the news about why they're even investigating the level of the third grade test as how valid of an indicator that it is. But certainly we don't want to let something like that be an excuse for us. We want to do everything that's possible to make sure that we have prepared them along the way. And, you know, we can find demographic information for districts that are similar to ours, and I think we're probably living at the level or just above for those that are, you know, with kind of the same income levels and some of the challenges that we have in our district. But we want to lead, and so we don't want to leave it there. We want to make sure that we're moving forward and doing that. That's information that I can get for you just to put it in context, but we don't want to let that be something that pulls back on us. We want to push forward and make sure that we're doing it every year what we need.
Well, the other side is the standards. Who comes up with the standards for those grade school numbers? I mean, that's their state averages, and that's what we're comparing ourselves to.
Well, and if you remember last year, wasn't it, A&M had this study, Texas A&M had this study that showed that third grade testing was 1 to 2 grades ahead of what it should have been.
And one of the reasons is the state's determination to be sure to put authentic literature on the test rather than what we once upon a time called controlled vocabulary passages in which they made it look and sound like what a third grader ought to read. Now they pull what authors have actually written, and so often there will be big vocabulary words, things that are harder, more challenging sentences for third graders to read. And so that's why maturity often and more experience will give kids a better handle in dealing with literature like that. But we've got to put that in front of our kids and help make them become proficient as early as possible.
Well, if you saw the flip of that, that would be horrible, because they got it, started losing it, lost it. We just sent them out the door, right? And so to Travis's point, it's like they may be struggling up here, but by the time they get ready to come out of the doors, they're actually ahead for the most part, and significantly on some things. So yeah, it really does bring into question, when you see that, you're kind of going, yeah, what is this? Yeah, it doesn't add up.
Well, I guess that was the context of my...
It's kind of like cholesterol medication. You kind of keep raising the normals for cholesterol so they can sell more.
They can sell more cholesterol.
The standards of where we are and what are they comparing us to.
And so we can provide you with some additional information. We'll keep this going. I'd like to bring up Shay Garland now to kind of talk to you about some of the things that are happening with the reading achievement and how we're watching that and working with the campus level to be sure that we're keeping our students moving forward.
Well, I guess that was the context of my question, because I was thinking, if we can find a way to get the third and the fifth grade, for instance, solved, think how much higher all the rest of those scores could be.
And they
I mean, the SAT, the ACT stuff, Ivy League schools, I mean, we're National Merit Scholars, where's the limit, right? So if we can solve the problems at the lower level, think how much higher the other ones could be. And that's where I was thinking, all right, if there's any barriers, we can work on thinking it's a rhetorical question, I get it. But if there's anything we can do to help that, we should try to do that, right?
We came from a district, when I moved here, my oldest was in 3rd grade, going into 3rd grade. We came from a district where the singular focus was that test every year. And I would, as a PTO mom, volunteer in the nurse's office on testing day, and we would have anywhere from 80 to 100 babies in there throwing up on testing day, because all they were was that number on that test, and all the teachers focused on was that number on that test. And when we moved up here, and Bobby came home the first time saying, "Oh, we have a test tomorrow," I was like, well, look at you, Mr. Cool Cucumber. So if we're pushing out the right product at the end, I'm okay that we don't have puking children and teachers too in the nurse's office going, whoa. So we obviously want to keep pushing progress and achievement. And it would be lovely if all of those numbers ended up turning up in there. But, you know, you guys keep doing what you're doing, and you're building teams, and you're putting new people on those teams, and they all come with new ideas. And so I hope that y'all are gleaning what makes sense to you out of those folks.
We're working on it, and as you'll see from our team, we have incredibly talented leadership on our team. And as you heard Alana say a minute, we want to build their confidence so that for taking this test, and that we want no surprises, that no matter what comes up on the test, I'm equipped to handle it. And so Shay certainly has the leadership it takes to keep us moving there, has a good vision for being really good readers and literate citizens, but also helping our kids have the skills that are needed at those early grades. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I do want to your point, say that's been our message as an ELAR department. It's not about the test. It's about your life outside of the walls of our school building. So we want to build good readers and writers. We're not just focusing on that one day, that one assessment. So we feel like if we do our job and teach the state standards and focus on the students in front of us, not the test, that's months and months away, we'll have kiddos in the right place at the right time in order to perform. So we've always collected a lot of data about where our students are, but the piece that we felt was missing was the active monitoring of that data and making in-time decisions about how to adjust our instruction and interventions to meet those students' needs. So what we are going to do is the same thing we've always done, our beginning, middle, and end of the year screener assessments. We have 2 that we use at the K-4 level, only 1 for K-8, excuse me. And so what we are doing, we have our district level coordinator of student success, and she and I kind of work together with our campus interventionists to look at that data, see which students are making progress, which students are not on track making progress, meet with the campus administrators and talk about what is the plan for these students, what have they been receiving, what adjustments do we need to make, rather than keeping the same prescription all year long and hoping that it fixes, like my cough that's been with me for about a month now. Clearly I need to go revisit and get a different prescription because that has not healed my issue. So making sure that we are looking not only from a district level, but also partnering with our campus administrators and even down to our teacher level to say, you're with this child every day. What is it that you're noticing in your interactions with the child? Is this the right intervention for the child? Because if it's not, we need to change that because we have to meet the students where they are. Of course, we'll continue with our district common assessments, and I have some data to share with you. Some is really exciting, some is on the way to becoming exciting. It's not quite there yet. But the other thing that we're really proud of our K-6 administrators for doing is incorporating an intervention block within the school day that is targeted priority on reading instruction. And so every campus administrator, and they deserve lots of applause for that because it was not an easy task, they have committed at least 30, some of them 40 minutes of their school day to focus on reading. So I'm not saying school shuts down, but we have a block of time where teachers are able to pull a small group of students and work with them at their level to give them the skills that they need. In addition to that, and that screen looks really strange, but we have a lot of other interventions. Previously, we had essentially kind of 2, maybe 3 total interventions, and regardless of your deficit, this was what you were getting because this is what the district had. So rather than purchasing one blanket intervention for all of our kiddos, we decided to be strategic and purchase a limited number of licenses for specific programs and help campuses decide which program is the best to meet those students' needs.
So we're not giving everyone the same prescription. We're giving you the prescription based on the deficits that you're showing us you have in reading. So with those things in place, we're hoping when I come back in February and June, I can say, hey, we're a lot closer to meeting this goal of 80% of our students being on level. Currently, with our beginning of the year Fountas and Pinnell reading assessment, it's an individual administration. The teacher sits with the student, reads through the passage, analyzes for miscues, asks questions for comprehension, does a few calculations, and comes out with a score that we then translate to a reading level. So these are only kids who are at meeting and mastering. I did not include approaches kids. We would be a lot closer to that 80 if I put approaches, but we want kids reading on grade level, not close to grade level, because we know if they get that passage that's above grade level, they will not be successful. So I don't want to falsify the data, even though this does not make my heart happy. I want us to focus on those meets and masters kiddos. So you see we have some work to do. Like Dr. Hubert said, it does not start at 3rd grade. Reading starts really at home before they ever come to us, but definitely once they enter our doors as kindergartners. Kindergarten doesn't take their VOY yet, that's why that date is not up there. We'll have that when we come back in February. But you can see we've got some gaps to close there to get to that 80 number, but with all of our intense interventions we have in place, we're confident that we'll be able to close that gap significantly. So the next time you see this chart, there should not be as much of a gap between where we are and where that goal is.
And this is the beginning of the year
Yes,
testing.
this is in September.
And so the goal is to hit 80 by end of the year.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So in regards to our actual DCA performance, and what I do is typically take kind of a condensed version of the STAR assessments and put it together based on the skills that students have been working at. But it's all STAR release materials. I don't finagle any answer choices. I leave it exactly as it is. And we put those in front of our students 3 times a year as a practice to kind of gauge where they are. So what we'll be doing from this point forward is kind of monitoring their progress. And we're all looking for growth. So it's not just, did you pass? Yes, you passed. It's, did you pass better than you passed last time? Because passing is not the goal anymore. They've got to exceed their progress from the previous school year. So even our kids who made an 80 last year, we don't want you to pass this year. We need you to hit those measures that will get us the growth points in our Closing the Gaps report. So you can see this is just at approaching level. This is where our students are in the grade levels. I put all of them on one side so you can see 3rd through 8th at a glance. So we're pretty close to hitting our goal. Now we have some work to do, 3rd grade, we're a little ways away. And remember, this is a shortened version. This is not full test, but this is kind of the only way we can get a small measure of where students might be performing. So that's our approaching level. Here's our meets level, which is roughly about an average of at a 75 or higher for these students. So you can see the gap gets a little bit bigger, especially with 3rd grade. But remember, these are kids who've never taken a STAR test before. They've never seen questions in this format before. So the first DCA is always a little rough at 3rd grade. We see 10 to 20 points of growth by the time they take that second one in December. So my hope is that we'll have the same level of growth when I stand before you again next time. And then, of course, you can see our master's level performance. And we already have like our 6th and 7th grade populations who are already exceeding the goal that we have set. Now again, this is a shortened version, so there's some stamina that comes into play when we take the real test, but our kids are rising to the occasion, and even on the practice test, they're giving us their best effort, which is always a good thing. So we're hopeful that with those measures in place, we'll get to see that progress grow throughout the year. Do you all have any questions about ELAR? I know I'm talking fast, but I'm watching the clock, and we have 2 executive sessions left.
So those will be ongoing, and we'll have another chance to look at them as we move farther in the year and look for progress, and we can ask some questions. Obviously, this is data that's being digested at our campuses with our principals and with our teachers, and they're looking at modifications to improve instruction based on the result of this, and we'll hope to see some improvement the next time we take a chance and look at it. So.
Yes, we will see some improvement.
And then, of course, we talked about the 3rd and 5th grade math, and Susie Johnson is here to talk about some of the things that they're doing with math performance, and in order to support not only that, but really all levels of the system, and we'll provide you some data to look at in that regard as well.
I want to give you just a glimpse into all the pieces that we have going in mathematics. We track a lot of data in math because that's what math is about, obviously. And when you look, we give the state screeners, we have what's known as the E-Star and M-Star, and the state provides those screeners 3 times a year. And that's really elementary students algebra ready and middle school students algebra ready. And we've been doing this now for several years. And so it tracks the data. I'm gonna give you a glimpse into that. And the first 2 weeks of school, our kids come in and we give them the screener. So we know where they stand when they first get here. And I'll give you a glimpse into that. We've got a really nice K through 8 system. We give common module or chapter tests, if you want to think back to school, across the grade levels. And we do that specifically so we can compare. That way you know if a classroom is underperforming, overperforming, and we can find out what's going on there. So we do a lot of comparison data that way too, along with math is very skill-based. So you really see like this skill is specifically tested here, then we can track those skills. So that's why we do those things too. We also give district common assessments, common across every single grade level subject, 17 high school subjects. We give common assessments so we can, again, make more comparisons. But then we also do something that we started last year that it was pretty exciting, especially how the data came in. The state is obviously concerned about tracking and looking and seeing how people perform at the end. And they provided us with 2 state online interim assessments. And it's also to prepare because we know that's the direction assessment's going. I mean, we know people don't sit and take pen and papers like we do. And so what they did is they provide 2 opportunities. They provide one in the fall and one in the spring. And the data banks of questions all come from the STAR assessments. And they're written by teachers and the same people that put the items into the bank that we take our STAR. And what's really cool about these tests is it's not like full-blown STAR scary stuff. It's actually adaptive technology. And so what they do is the students sit for a 15-question common assessment, basically. So 15 questions. So, and a kid can do that in a class period. And after that 15, or what we call part 1, the actual assessment adapts to the pumpkin. So in other words, what happens is if you happen to be a does not meet kid, or an approaching kid, or a meets kid, or a master's kid, the second part of the next 15 questions are built on you. So number 1, you're not feeling like a failure. You're feeling like you're having some success. And then at the end, it gives us a prediction of this is how you're gonna perform at the end of the year. And that data was actually true to form. It was a great correlation last year for us in math. So we're going full blown again and we're doing it. And matter of fact, our little 3rd and 4th graders will do it. And they're not afraid of it. It's not scary, it's no big deal. It's just going in and taking a 15-question test, which is very similar to our module and our chapter exams anyway. And that gives us a lot of great data. Now, you have all this great data. What do you do with it? And all of our interventions or our point in time, if you have to stretch a kid or if you've got to intervene or you have to fix a skill, happens pretty much within all the math classrooms. So our teachers take all this data that we're constantly throwing at them and then they decide, okay, this group needs this group needs this, and a lot of that happens in what we call stations in math. You have, and literally kids will tell you, they have the master's level station, the meets level station, the approaching station, and sometimes the small group station with the teacher, which is I've got to reteach that skill because our goal is by the end of the year, you have to master that skill. So you have that time frame because kids learn at different speeds, and that's okay. And with all those pieces, one of the things that I have to do, shout outs to all of our fabulous principals, is they really have worked very hard at getting our math teachers common time together. Whether it's rearranging a master schedule or rearranging their schedule a day, because I can't do anything with that data myself. It's great data, it's awesome to look at, and I can target, and when you look at it, they specifically target every individual child. So I can tell you, you need this, you need this, you need this, but the problem is you guys then have to make a plan what to do with that. And so our fabulous principals have gotten great time for my math teachers, and they've been able to plan intensive intervention, or again, stretching kids. We're pushing kids further and further and further, and you'll see that with lots of fun things that we're doing with those kids. But it's due to that common planning time. The other thing I want to talk about through all of this too is during that station time or during those pieces, we have some amazing adaptive online programs. And we specifically target specific things at certain grade levels. Our K through 2, we have what's known as First in Math. If you had young children in the district, it's been a big thing for me because it's building fluency. And so you'll see all of our K1, 2, because I don't want to intervene and think you don't know anything in 2nd grade. I want to get your fluency going so you're really fluent with numbers before you move on. And so we really focus on that at our K-1 too. Then we also have another program called I Learn. It's a fabulous program for kids that are significantly behind grade level. Because what happens is if you're a 5th grader sitting in a 5th grade math classroom and you're on a kindergarten math level, it's very difficult for the teacher to meet all the needs across their classroom. And so their job is to teach 5th grade math. That's what I need them doing. If we want to perform on the STAR, you have to do that. And so those programs help during that station time that you're getting a great 5th grade instruction, but then you're also all these gaps are being closed with that program. And then this year we were fortunate to write a fabulous grant, and we got $280,000, which was really awesome. And we're using it to fund a program we call Imagine Math. It's one of my favorites. 4 years ago, the state provided it for every single student free of charge. They knew it was a great program. Well, we jumped on, we used it, and then you know what the state did. They said, we're not paying for it anymore. And so we begged Eric, we begged everybody, and we got the money to pay for it for a couple of years. And then there's now some grants out there, the Math Innovation Zone grants, which is all about blended learning. And so what we did is we went full force, everybody in the curriculum had to write something, and we ended up getting $280,000. So we were super excited. We'll be able to fund it for a couple of years. And that program goes K through geometry. And so we were focused, it's actually pre-K this year. We actually started with our pre-Kers, and we're super excited because it's an amazing piece for them. And then we'll add kindergarten next year, et cetera. But right now, 3 through 12 use it on a daily basis. And it's been a fabulous because it meets all kids' needs. Whether you're a master's kid, it's meeting your need going through the program. Or if you're an approaching kid, it's meeting your need, closing those gaps before you get to grade level. And that's something our teachers have difficulty doing. When you look at all the levels and abilities in one room, and I'm saying, here's 35 kids, do something with them, it's tough to do. And so these programs are really helping us. So we're super excited about them. I want to look, just to give you a blip, here's where we started at the beginning of the year. The first 2 weeks of school, like I said, they come in, they take E-Star, M-Star, and so you can see the grade levels across. You see 3rd grade to 7th grade. This is where approaching level, and we're excited about the data. The data looks similar, except again, this is just like that minimum passing piece. But we have till the end of the year. We'll take another one, January 7th, when we come back from break. The kids will take the next benchmark, or what I call the middle of the year for M-Star and E-Star. So we'll have another data point to share with you, so you can see how we're tracking and doing these pieces in between. You can see the MEETS performance. The MEETS performance is one of the performances that when you come in, I'm excited again about the data, but at the same time, you don't want the illusion of anything until we see the next piece, because you have to keep fighting for that MEETS performance, because it's that one where you're trying to push approaching kids further and keep this middle group really working hard. And then of course our master's performance. Our master's performance, we worked really hard last year on masters. Because teachers are great at intervening, but teachers have difficulty. What do I do if you already know? Like, what do I do with you? Go sit in the corner, help somebody? And we don't want to do that. So we really push them with our master stations. And so we could see right off the bat this year, it paid off. And so we're super excited to see some of these scores. We wanted to share, this is the data that we'll track, we'll keep coming back and forth, but I also too want to make sure you all know we have not lost the studies. You know how passionate I am about mathematics. I live and breathe it, it's part of what we do. But in math, we are about mathematical thinking, which is very important. That helps that deep understanding and leads to those great problem solvers, because that's the real life piece of mathematics. I need you to know what to do when you don't know what to do. And we're going to keep pushing those pieces forward in our classroom, along with obviously monitoring and intervening in the data that we can. So, I'd be happy to take any questions. We'll be happy to take any questions, but that gives you the little picture of where we're at.
What do we ask you ever?
Anything. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate you all.
That's my question. Do you sleep?
And dreams of math.
And dreams of math. Lots of data tables.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
More data
Thank
points to
you.
come on that goal, and we'll check for that as we move along. And, you know, our hope and prayer is that as we see those move closer to each one of those on those benchmarks, that's gonna correlate to what we'll see on the STAR testing when we come back in the spring next year. So the second goal we're gonna look at is on the financial side, probably not quite as the plethora of data to look at each one, but we're gonna maybe clarify our goals a little bit, and we're gonna still try to find some data points to look at for how we can meet some of those goals. Dr. Morris?
If I could just remember how to get this started. Just kidding. Use slideshow. There we go from beginning. All right. Another presentation. Try to keep it engaged. I'll go through this fairly quickly for the board. Obviously, I'll stop and answer any questions, but I think a lot of the financial goals will look fairly familiar to you, and in particular with some of the stuff we discussed this past summer, okay? First off, we did change some of the language of the goal itself. We broadened it somewhat to be a little more encompassing. We focused on maximizing resources and administrative efficiencies in the past, and that's not something that we're going to fail to approach. But we did change the language slightly, where it now simply states, Magnolia ISD will manage district resources effectively. Very simple, but I think fitting at the same time as we get into the performance objectives. So, performance goal 2A at this point, and obviously the board is aware that fund balance is the greatest generator or critical strength for a district in terms of their financial stability. It's something that we focus on each and every year when we're building our budget, when we're going through our first report, and so forth and so on. The state of Texas, or TEA, has recommended a minimum fund balance of 2 months of operating expenses and fund balance, and obviously we've targeted higher than that. We're at 3.5 months, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But I do think that it's something that we obviously need to continue to focus on each and every year when we're building our budgets and remaining conservative with our approaches and so forth and so on. We have built ourselves into a very stable financial position, and we want to maintain that, of course. So our target for fund balance purposes is that we maintain at least 3 months of operating expenses in reserve. And again, I'll show you where we are in just a moment at this time. But for first accountability purposes, you may recall that in order to receive a perfect score of 10 of 10 on this indicator, it's anything that exceeds 90 days or 3 months. So I think it's a good performance target for sure.
The bond rating companies also think
The bond
that's
rating, yes, ma'am, that's an excellent
great
point.
number to have.
They're suggesting that we're more financially stable as well. Yes,
Which ends up saving us money every time we get better rates, so.
absolutely. Thank you for that. Yes, ma'am. Evidence of progress, again, we'll look at this on the front end of budget adoption, but also in February after we approve the audit in January, okay? So here's a quick glimpse of, the strides that we've made over the past 12 to 13 years. You can look at the 06-07 school year, and the second to last column on the right, you'll see the months of operating expenses that we had in fund balance at that time. Less than 2 months of operating expenses, and we got down to just over 1.5 months of operating expenses and fund balance in that third year, okay? Obviously, with our conservative budget approach and, making sure that we're also taking care of our needs, you can see how that's grown throughout the years. And at the end of the 17-18 school year, we reached a pinnacle of just over 3.5 months, 3.57 months of operating expenses and fund balance, which obviously basically means that if we receive no more funding of any kind on any given day, that we could survive for 3.5 months. Obviously, we don't anticipate that or hope for that, but anyhow. And you can see again at the end of the 18-19 school year, we are anticipating, although it's unaudited at this point, contribution of approximately $1.3 million. As a reminder, we're using a substantial portion of gross surplus to take care of district needs as well. So this is the end product, or the net contribution of fund balance after utilizing some of those dollars for buses and things of that nature. Does that make sense? So again, we're very pleased, and I know this is a historical deal. We didn't go too far into the future because, quite honestly, the goal is very simple. It is to maintain a minimum of 3 months of operating expenses. Obviously, as your budget continues to grow, that means you're going to have to continue to contribute some dollars. For 1920 at this point, we adopted a balanced budget. We anticipate spending all of the money within the budget, or nearly all the money, and we're behind slightly on enrollment at this point from our projections. So at this point, we would assume that we would end level which obviously when you increase your budget by almost $10 million as a result of HB3, it's going to decrease. So I believe that that three-month goal is substantial and sufficient for what we need to maintain. Any questions on that? Okay. 2B, and this is something that obviously we look at each year. We want to make sure that we're spending our dollars correctly. We want to make sure that we're shifting as many dollars as we can into the classroom. The board knows that we compare ourselves on a functional accounting status each year to compare to the average district in the state of Texas. And we've prided ourselves on spending more on instruction than the average district and less on administration and so forth and so on. And so I think it's a continued focus, like Dr. Hebert mentioned. I mean, it's the main thing. So we understand that we have a limited amount of resources available each year, and we want to make sure that we're spending those dollars into the classroom when money is available. So we have broadened the focus on this a little bit to focus on operational expenses in particular, such as utilities, electricity, and so forth and so on. Obviously, we know that we've looked at how we spend our money on transportation this past year versus average district and so forth and so on. So we're going to continue to do that, and I'll show a slide in just a moment of some of the savings that we felt from in the past based on electricity. We'll look at that each year, again, when the audit is complete and each budgetary cycle as well. That makes sense? Okay. And here's just a view of our instructional expense percentage since the 11-12 school year. And you can see, in spite of some changes each and every year in terms of funding and things and focus, if you will, that we've been able to increase our instructional expense percentage from just over 60% to a pinnacle in 17-18 of over 63%, and we're maintaining right at that 63% mark at this point. As a reminder, the average district in the state is closer to 60% for this. So it's going to continue to be a focus, and obviously on the bottom you see the instructional dollars per student. Of course, as more funding becomes available, you're going to see that go up automatically, but it's important that we do focus any new dollars into the classroom, and that we continue to try to limit our operational expenses as well to maximize the money that we do have available. Questions on that? Excuse me, and this just kind of coincides with 2B. Board may or may not know, we haven't talked about it in quite some time, but in the 08-09 school year, we spent $4.3 million on electricity, and in 18-19 we spent $2.5 million, and that's obviously in spite of adding facilities during that time and so forth and so on. Part of that's market driven, that's out of our hands, but we've also very strategically struck on pricing for futures contracts to lock in those lower rates. Updated controls, HVACs. We're currently, Alan, Mr. Meeks is all in on a district-wide LED lighting initiative. And then, of course, for the past many years, we've had some competition at the campus level for energy savings as well, where we're giving money back to the campuses, half of the money that they've saved for consumption purposes. So again, I know that's the past, but that's the type of thing that we're going to continue to focus on in the future. Okay? So, board goal 2C. And this is a new one in terms of board goal, but obviously isn't a new focus for us as a board. But we want to be very aggressive and fiscally prudent with our debt management plan. The board knows we've paid down debt early. We've defeased bonds early. We've taken advantage of refunding, saving the taxpayers millions of dollars, and that's something that we want to continue to focus on. We're just making it a little more precise with this presentation, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Each year, we're going to look at our annual financial report. We'll look at our debt amortization schedule. We'll look at what we have to spend, so to speak, and then we'll look at what we can based on our tax rate and so forth and so on. Something that we focused on this past summer, but that we want to continue to look at. And here's just an example of that for bond defeasance purposes. And again, I think this will look familiar to the board. It's something we looked at several times this summer. But you know, we paid off the 2009 series in 2019, saving a little over $300,000 in interest. And then we've identified the 2012 and 2013 for early defeasance as well in each of the next 2 years, where we're going to save a total of about $3 million on just those two bonds as well, save our taxpayers in interest. So, and obviously, we're also wiping off that debt at the same time in terms of the principal. So it's, it obviously makes sense to do. It's fiscally prudent, and it's something that we can, pat ourselves on the back when we talk to our taxpayers as well.
And you said we're saving $3 million?
Yes, ma'am. That's just on in 2020 and 2021. If you add all of those together, you'll see in the far right column, we're saving $3.4 million in total based on a 3-year approach. So that's a good thing, of course. Any questions on that? And of course, I know this is one of our favorite slides. Ms. Evil and I have looked at multiple times, but this is at the end of 2017-18 in terms of how we compare to our peers, and certainly not throwing rocks. Every district is set up differently. Some are growing quicker than others and so forth. But we're very pleased with our efforts to pay down debt early, to refund bonds, and to do what's fiscally prudent. And this shows, compared to our peers, that we were less than $15,000 in terms of debt per student. And again, this was at the end of 17-18. We've been very aggressive since then. We're actually closer to 12,400 per student at this time.
12,400?
So again, obviously, we anticipate substantial growth over the next 8 to 10 years. So this kind of stuff right here is going to set us up well for tax rate purposes and to limit the effect on our taxpayers, for sure.
Well, I thought it was interesting. I don't know if everybody else got one, but I got a postcard from some group, telling me to vote against the Conroe bond, which I couldn't vote on that if I wanted to. But one of the things they hammered away at was interest, and the fact that you can't educate a child with interest. And that's a truism, right? So you would hope when you're a district that's trying to do something like this, when the day comes that you will need a school, we're growing, when that day comes, that you're not out there beating me up over interest when we're the lowest, or one of the lowest in the whole area. So I just thought that was interesting, that that's what they hammered away at.
And recall with our 2015 bond, we also changed our amortization approach versus the industry norm.
We changed to a different
25 years, so we saved $13 million when we did that as well. So again, it's nothing that's necessarily brand new, but it is new in terms of specific focus for goal purposes. So, fair enough? Any questions on that? Okay. And then finally, we want more money. We want to maximize the district funding, and of course that is a very simple statement, but I think the board pretty much understands this, but for state funding purposes, we are funded on an average daily attendance perspective. It's not enrollment and so forth. It's on weighted average daily attendance. And so one of the focuses that obviously is important to us is our attendance percentage. And Dr. Garza is working very hard, I know, each and every week in particular month to take a look at this. But for every 1% of attendance percentage that we lose, it equates to about $750,000, okay? For every one student that's absent, it costs us about $35 a day. And so obviously there's some things that we believe the campuses will create some healthy competition for attendance percentage purposes, which I'll show in just a moment, then we'll show again in 3 months. But and so it's very important that we maximize funding, and that's just one example. There's some other things that we need to look at for weighted funding purposes that I know Ms. Paula does a fantastic job for PEIMS and whatnot purposes, but we do want to maximize our funding, of course. It's very simple, but here's a quick view. I stole this from Dr. Garza's Excel spreadsheet from a few days ago, but this is kind of something in terms of my focus for my 4 sub-goals, if you will, that we will review every quarter. At very least, we'll give you an update of this on how the different campuses are performing from an attendance perspective. And you can see the 18-19 overall on the far right, and then you'll see the difference from 18-19 to 19-20 as of week 12 at a campus level, and then the difference of those as well. So again, one fairly small component, but that which can mean substantial dollars if we were grades, and obviously never mind the instructional component of how important it is to have the kids in the classroom.
You can't
So on
learn
double.
if you're not there.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we think parents understand the money's tied to their students attending?
You know, loosely, I would say, Sonia, probably some, but not many, you know, and very few have a, you know, distinct understanding of what that means, for sure, you know. I don't really have for comparison, and Dr. Garland may jump in, but I don't know really exactly how we compare. I'm more along the lines of comparing ourselves to ourselves and moving forward, but my assumption is that we're probably very close to the state average, if not quite, slightly higher, I would say, probably. Overall.
Sure, I can find out for you.
Sorry, Dr. Garland. And thank you. Any question on that? And again, that's something that we'll bring you a little more often than my other three, which we'll do semi-annually. Okay? Any other questions on finance?
Great stuff. Thank you. Good stuff.
Good stuff. And we'll move on safety and security and student stuff next month. So we've got more time.
Great updates, thank you all. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. This portion of the agenda consists of items to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless separate discussion is requested. Is there separate discussion requested? Okay, so if there aren't any questions, we need a motion that the board approve consent agenda items A through C. Motion by Kelly, seconded by Sonia. All in favor? Motion passes. Okay, Dr. Todd?
We are at 9. We've got to cast votes for the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. You guys have a total of 329 votes that you can cast for one or any combination of the 7 candidates, I think, that are up for position there in those board member slots. I think we've talked about it before. These are board members of the appraisal district. They help set the budget for the appraisal district. They kind of help oversee somewhat the administrative part of overseeing the operations of the appraisal district. I think they do help some with the recruitment of some of the people who work in the appraisal part of it. They do not work directly in the appraisal work and setting those values, or do they work in the hearing the complaints or concerns anybody has about their actual appraisal? So these people are in the operational part of that.
So they don't set the appraisal rates or
They don't
review
set-
of
they
or
don't-
anything?
Don't set any of that, and, and in a way, they work for us because the people who actually fund it are all the taxing entities within Montgomery County, and we are one of those. And so that's the reason we get a certain number of votes based on the percentage of how much volume we have in the taxing entities within Montgomery County to be able to affect those people who actually sit on the board and help with the operational part and set the budget. Because part of the budget is we pay our percent of the budget. And there's been a couple of times in the past year or so, the budgets, some of the salary increases were a little bit, we thought, out of line for what was happening in, the norm. And several of the superintendents and other taxing entities, I know the county as well, raised some objections to that, and they had to go back to a drawing board because they basically work for us in terms of that. We have to approve an MOU that has, the amount that we're going to fund for their operating part of that budget. So this is a group or a board that helps determine and set those kind of things. But they don't work day in, day out on the appraisals, and we set by that. And I think it's been a long time since we've had the appraisal district over here, but it might be good if we got Tony Belnarski to come out and give us an overview, a little bit of how that process works, just how involved the state is in the appraisal setting process, and how the state checks their homework and where they set those values. And I think it'd be good for us to hear some, because I don't know if any of y'all were sitting on the board when we've done one of those in the past. So I think it would be good for an update to do that. We've had them out here before. And so we'll do it. But anyway, tonight you have to make some determinations about these candidates as to which ones we currently want to board. Every 2 years, it's up there, so for a two-year period of time, and you get 5 of them, so there's 6 people on that.
And there's a total of 5 positions?
There's a total of 5 positions, yeah. So
Dr.
the highest 5 votes from all the votes cast within the county will actually receive
How
a
many
spot.
total votes can be cast? So what's our
We were looking at
340
that
look like?
total number, it's
5,000.
5,000 something
Okay,
votes.
so we got 340
So we
out
have
of 5,000.
300, so we have 329 votes out of
Just wanted to,
5,000.
just wanted to
Well, we have
level
found in
set
the
what we're
past,
talking
and our
about.
percentage of those votes, we,
So we have very little.
and I don't wanna say we
We're
sort
like
of
this much.
neglected, but we did used to, these candidates are selected from a nomination process from the taxing entities. And we, in the past, have nominated a candidate. And we had a former board member, and most of you know, Steve Cruz, served here. And we thought Steve had a unique skill set in his professional life to help serve on that. Not only is he an attorney, but he also is a surveyor and works very closely in land surveying and working with real estate, also within the Montgomery County area. And we thought he would be a good fit for that particular board. But with all of our votes cast for him, the two times we've tried to do that, we weren't able to. So it has to be a combined. So I would encourage you to look at maybe some of the other entities that maybe have a candidate that is being a nominee that's being selected that may be similar to us. There are several of these who've had, or 2 of them have had ISD experience in their resumes. It just helps bring a little bit of understanding for what you go through in that, some of that. And
Bruce Tuff on Conroe ISD?
Bruce Tuff has served on the Conroe board at a particular point in the past. And Adam Simmons, who's a current board member in Montgomery ISD. And as I understand, that's where Montgomery ISD is going to center their votes for him to be a part. So with that, I will leave it to the board's decisions, how they want to.
And apparently Conroe has expressed some interest, I guess, in Barry and Bonner also, I guess. I don't know if they were board members or not, but.
And you had a chance to look at all their resume. They don't normally like campaign. People don't go out and solicit vote, but they basically just send their resume of who they are professionally, and they have a reason they want to serve. And so,
Well, why would Conroe support Adam and not Bruce Tuff?
Say it again,
I can't
sorry.
answer those questions.
Okay.
What was that, Travis?
Why would Conroe ISD support Adam Simmons and not Bruce Tuff, who was on their board?
He was on their board.
He was.
Wasn't.
He's not anymore.
Not
but-
currently.
Well, we could nominate more than one.
You can nominate,
split them
well,
across
you're not
all.
nominating, you can vote.
I'm sorry.
That don't mean we throw our votes,
So we have 329 votes.
we can distribute them however we want.
However you want to distribute them. You can put them all in one basket, or you can break them out among,
329 people, 1 vote?
yeah, there's 8 of them, right?
Yeah.
There's only 8 of them.
So
And
you-
the county has 5,000 total votes as far as entities across the county. So our 329 are.
So there's
I'm
a
sorry, it's just killing
hospital
me.
district, there's
Like 6%.
Lone Star,
They were trying to push another unknown
I'm
candidate.
sorry.
Montgomery ISD, Conroe ISD, Splendora,
Yeah, I'm like,
all the taxing entities, a little bit of Tomball ISD.
What I'm thinking.
Well, if we split them up, we just diluted ourselves further.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Probably the biggest is actually the county. Montgomery County is the largest, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Number of votes.
Because they encompass everything.
yeah, they're getting money.
I would suggest we pick one, because otherwise we're diluting the very few votes we have.
I don't have a vote.
So, any suggestions? I mean, we kind of know, I don't know these guys.
Yeah, I read them all, but
So, yeah, I read them, but
Yeah.
that doesn't.
I mean, it would be nice to have somebody with past school experience on there.
Right. That would be my
So
criteria.
That would be
So there was
Adam or Bruce, right?
yeah,
It's Adam or Bruce. that
Adam or
had-
Bruce.
So,
All right, can we
I'll
narrow it
divide
down
them
to
between
those
the
two?
I could,
I could.
yeah.
We can narrow down to those.
Christie said something interesting to me that you might
He
wanna
was
share.
just asking why would Conroe ISD necessarily put their eggs behind somebody else, but Bruce Tuff has a lot of recognition, name recognition in the county. If
So-
they felt like he could carry
Doesn't
his
need their
own
vote.
He doesn't need their votes, so.
banner, then they might have put
Well, then
their weight
maybe we
behind
go
the guy
at
they
'em.
wanted to be one of the other candidates who was successful. So that would be my way of thinking about why they
Either one is fine.
might
Either
not have,
school one.
but, you know, they maybe didn't want to
Montgomery's more
dilute their
like that.
votes either and figured Bruce maybe could carry himself, but,
It didn't need to.
But that's a,
right.
oh, that's a current board member,
Yeah, I think
that Montgomery was.
What do you think, Chuck?
Well, I don't think we're gonna push anyone across the goal line.
Exactly. I'm
with our
thinking that, you
329, but-
know, I could do that and come out okay. It sounds like Bruce probably, if they're thinking he's already got the votes, I'm not sure we're helping him.
Right.
So are we really getting votes? So I would say, mine would say Adam.
I mean, because he's got school board
That's what
experience, right?
I would say Adam for sure.
I'm fine with
I
that.
mean, that's my
I'm
two.
good with that.
I'm fine
That's my
with that.
two.
Okay, well then, there we go.
As I understand, he is a current school board member,
Yeah.
Yeah.
serving on the school board.
So, all right, then, we need a motion that the board approve the resolution casting 329 votes for candidate Adam Simmons to serve on the Montgomery Central Appraisal District Board of Directors as presented.
I'll make that.
Motion by Chuck, seconded by Travis. All in favor? All right, that motion passes. What else?
Yeah,
Executive session.
All right.
that's why I had to ask that.
All right, at this time, the board will now recess to move into closed executive session for the purposes permitted by Texas Government Code 551.071, consult with legal counsel in closed session to receive legal advice regarding level 3 grievance appeal. And I want to interject here, unless any board member objects, at this time, the board is going to move up item 14A up on the agenda, and we'll go into executive session pursuant to sections 551.071, 551.0821, and 551.129, consultation with school attorney concerning pending litigation and possible settlement of matter styled student versus Magnolia ISD, docket number 013-SE-0919, before a special education hearing officer of the state of Texas. So unless anybody objects to that, we'll tackle that one first.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the board is now in open session. The next item on the agenda is to consider the grievance of Mr. Thomas George, who I understand is being represented by his mother, Mrs. Teresa George, on behalf of Mr. George's daughter, pursuant to Magnolia ISD Board Policy FNG. So, Mrs. George, are you representing Mr. George and his daughter?
I am.
Okay, thank you. The grievance will be heard in open session as requested by Mr. George. Mr. George, do you understand, I've got a question here from Mr. George, is he here?
He is not.
Okay.
I think we can, so, just to change it, I understand you submitted, Mr. George submitted a FERPA release?
He did.
Okay, and we have that on the record?
You do.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We can just skip down to here. Okay. It's November 11th, and it is 10:20 p.m. So in order to provide an accurate record, a tape recording of the proceedings is being made. So please avoid talking when others are speaking so that the record will reflect the proceedings accordingly. The following board members are present: Kelly McDonald, Sonia Ebel, Chuck Adcox, Christy Baker, Travis Moffitt, and myself, Gary Blizzard. A quorum is present. I will now provide instructions regarding the procedures to be followed in this grievance hearing. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with the district's policy FNG local. Mr. George, the grievant and/or his representative, which would be you, will present the level 3 appeal to the board. I will ask the board members not to interrupt during the appeal presentation. When the grievant has completed her presentation, the administration may make a reply. Members of the board are not to be questioned. This is not a formal evidentiary hearing, and there will be no calling of witnesses or cross-examination. The board will consider only the issues and the documents presented below. The parties may not introduce new documentation or information to the board during this appeal. Unless you tell me now that you expect to need a greater length of time, I ask that you please limit your presentation to 20 minutes each. And in the interest of fairness, I want to give both sides the same amount of time, and if warranted, we can provide additional time as necessary to wrap up. So are there any questions regarding the conduct of the hearing?
No.
Okay, good. So you may now present your appeal.
Okay. My name is Teresa George, and I am speaking for our family on behalf of my granddaughter Kayla concerning the route changes by the Transportation Department. On 7/22/2019, Mr. Dedes presented information to this board about changes to the bus transportation routes. During that presentation, he outlined route changes related to cost savings, driver's times, and student times. The summary he provided eliminated 8 routes, savings on fuel and oil, tires and brakes, and approximately a 10 to 15% cost reduction. Additional reasons were published later, but not included in his presentation to this board. His presentation was primarily related to cost. Not one board member questioned how the reduction of services was going to impact these students. If any of these changes presented any risk to the students during the board meeting. In my first appeal, I provided the same maps that Mr. Dedes presented during his presentation to the board, along with the distances the students were expected to walk. One of those routes presented was Alford Road, my granddaughter's route, which initially required my granddaughter to walk 1.4 miles, and other students on the same route 2.5 miles. Other routes represented also had students walking over a mile to get to the bus stop. Did the administration and the route coordinators fail to measure the distances? Did the route coordinators or the administration look at the public sex offenders database to see if any route changes would put any child at risk? No one seemed to take student safety into consideration with these changes. It was about saving money and time during that meeting. Mr. Dedes stated, and I quote, "Our router assured me that no student would be on the bus more than 50 minutes, end quote. But this administration nor the router seemed concerned if the changes meant the students are now walking over a mile in hazardous conditions, or if a bus stop location was presented in a dangerous situation. The beta test for these changes based on that meeting in 2008 was the 2018 Lake Windcrest project, a consolidated bus routes within a planned community with streetlights, HOA regulations, clubhouses, playgrounds, and parks. My granddaughter's route, as many of the routes in this school district, are not in planned communities and lack the infrastructure that is necessary for public transportation, for pedestrian safety. There are no risk assessments of these changes nor practical application of the beta test. Changes based on a single planned community were applied across the district without consideration of student safety. It took 12 business days from the date of the board meeting to publish the route changes, with only 5 different business days prior to school starting. The response should have been clear to administration and this board that the route changes presented a major impact to student safety and was not considered in the application. One of your ethics was defined by your code of ethics to be responsive to the community by seeking its involvement in district affairs and by communicating its priorities and concerns. I emailed each of you twice, on August 7th and August 8th, and I want to thank the 2 board members who did respond to me. The response from the district included a list of reasons the route changes took place. First was the safety of drivers and buses performing maneuvers in turnarounds and exits. I asked how many accidents have occurred. Although this was not answered by administration, I reviewed the TEA bus reports, and only 3 accidents have been reported in the last 3 years, not on a maneuver turnaround. The turnaround maneuvers present no greater risk. The drivers are still doing them when it's necessary for the time requirement established by their routes. In fact, several stops were moved to major roadways, which present a greater risk as cars are not yielding to the buses. This has been reported by several parents, by drivers, and documented in video. One example of that stop is 1774 in Fayette, which has been reported to transportation and brought to the school board previously. If a bus accident happens at any location already identified as a risk, the responsibility and the blame sit right here because you guys are aware that there are safety issues. There has been much discussion about a 3.4 average budget for transportation, and MISD is over this budget. In my complaint, I asked where this percentage came from, and again, I did not receive an answer. So I looked into the budgets across school districts within our area, and they're relatively equal. Even when I reviewed Region 6 transportation budgets from the TEA, the average is 4.98, not 3.4. So my question, if information provided the board was even correct. I questioned if other departments and budgets are being evaluated for a regional percentage. Again, my question went unanswered. However, I've been doing a lot of research on the TEA website, which has a lot of information about budgets. And we have a lot of expenses that are larger than normal. I also asked about cost-saving efforts for the transportation, like the operation of the 2 tractor trailers for band equipment and the operation of the mobile food truck, since administration feels the transportation budget is above average. What other cost savings efforts were reviewed? Dr. Morris responded, budget workshops each year took cost savings each budget season. However, the budget for the school year was already approved. So this was done outside of a budget workshop, which leads me to believe that no additional cost-saving efforts evaluated from the transportation department prior to reducing student transportation services. The revised budget presented in the following board meeting reflected no budget changes or updates. TEA section 34.010 defines that the cost of using equipment for the purpose other than the transportation of students to and from school be properly identified in the Public Education Information Management System. I am still reviewing that information. One additional reason after the initial presentation for the reduction of student services was a driver shortage. I asked about the turnover rate, but was given the shortage of drivers at the first of the year. Maybe, rather than focusing on route reduction, this board and administration should try and understand why there's such a driver turnover. Standard business reasons state, for high turnover rates, a high-stress environment. Our drivers do. They drive, they referee, they're medics, they're secretaries and custodians. Lack of input, drivers' concerns are not actively responded to. Limited opportunity for growth and salary. Added to this are continual vehicle maintenance issues and the use of vintage buses. My granddaughter's been on a few. The bus driver is a part-time position with 5 base hours per day, yet they don't average 5 base hours a day. They work more than six or more hours a day. With the base of only 5 hours, that's what they get paid during holidays or off time. Or vacation. Could you support your family on 25 hours a week? It costs this district more to train and then let talent walk out the door than it would to focus on why Magnolia ISD cannot keep its drivers. I asked about the reduction of student services did not require a vote by the board. Mr. Dedes stated, Mr. Dedes referred me to the Texas Education Code. TEO Code section 34.007 states that a board of county school trustees or a school district board of trustees may establish and operate and economical public transportation system. According to TEA, it does seem to be this board's responsibility to establish and operate that transportation system. TEA further defines, as TEA section 34.07 further allows a parent or designee to add a following location, grandparents' house or childcare, instead of the child's residence as a regular location. I'm not asking for a separate location. We are requesting for the return of my granddaughter's residence for her safety. Section 42.155 defines a hazardous road traffic condition where no sidewalks are provided. This allows for additional funding. So I asked if MISD received additional funding under this code. Again, my questions were unanswered. My granddaughter's route requires her to walk in the street with no sidewalks, unmaintained ditches, around a blind curve, and with limited visibility past an abandoned house for 3,117 feet, which is over a half a mile. Dr. Stevens' response to me about the route changes via email defined the changes as a win-win for everybody. Due diligence was not done prior to the publication of route changes, as 13 routes were adjusted as documented in my level 1 response from Mr. Davies. This was not a win-win for everybody. There are incidents of cars blocking there's an incident of a car blocking fire trucks and emergency response vehicles, and there was an incident of an adult aborting a bus with the students. Rather than being reactive, I requested that the administration be proactive and review all routes over a half a mile for student safety, which was granted. However, I asked for outcomes or dates when this would be completed, and again, I was unanswered. My last response from Dr. Morris on my level 2 complaint, as I requested again to move my granddaughter's stop back to her home, was, quote, her response is appropriate and consistent with bus stops through the district and meets the same safety standards with all district stops, end quote. What are those safety standards for the district stops, and where are those safety standards documented? If this supports the reason to deny my request, why was the district safety stop standards not provided in my response? The Magnolia ISD policy CAN legal outlines hazardous within a 2-mile radius of school, which is the policy of hazardous of walking within a 2-mile radius. Why is that different from students walking outside the 2-mile radius? The majority of the population of students for MISD are not defined in this policy, but are still made to walk in hazardous conditions. Are they not defined because the expectation was that these children would be provided bus transportation from the child residence and not required to walk in hazardous conditions? If the policy defines it as a hazardous condition within 2 miles, why would it not be a hazardous condition outside of 2 miles? In summary, I believe the board was presented with incorrect information. A process of route consolidation based on a single planned neighborhood was applied across all routes, including those that are not represented or of the population that was tested, and roads with insufficient structure for pedestrian walking, without any consideration for the student's safety. Your code of ethics states, be continuously guided by what is best for all students, not just students in a planned community. These changes are not supported by the transportation vision either, whatever it takes, as it's documented on their website. I ask again, I need my granddaughter's stop reinstated for her safety. She should not be required to walk in the middle of a road, which represents hazard conditions and presents a risk to her safety. A road that does not support an infrastructure for pedestrian traffic with no lighting, no sidewalk, blind curbs, abandoned house, and roaming animals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The administration may now proceed with the reply.
Thank you, Mr. Blizzard. Good evening, members of the board. If I may, I would like to jump directly into the reason why we are before the board this evening to talk about this topic. In its simplest form, as discussed in level 1 and level 2, Ms. George would like her granddaughter's bus stop moved back to where it was located last school year at her granddaughter's place of residence. I understand this, of course, this request as a parent. I think we all can understand this request as parents of kids who are currently going to school here, or will go to school here, or have gone to school here. Unfortunately, the school district's transportation system is not able to meet every parent or grandparent's request in terms of his or her preferred bus stop location. We transport over 7,000 students a day, and we have to operate a safe, efficient, and cost-effective service. In doing so, it is simply not feasible to meet every request. In the case of Ms. George's granddaughter, the bus stop location for this school year was originally approximately, she mentioned 1.4 miles, approximately 1.2 to 1.4 miles from her home. After a district-wide review of all stops with focus on a reasonable distance from home, as well as local safety standards, the bus stop location was moved to its present location of approximately 0.6 miles from the home. While each potential bus stop location is unique in terms of potential safety concerns, some local safety standards include distance from railroad tracks, traffic volume, speed limits, and so forth. The district considered the circumstances of Ms. George's granddaughter's bus stop and adapted the stop accordingly to its current location. In an effort to allow the board to better see what that looks like, I've asked Mr. Davies to hand out just a very simple map quickly, and then he's going to talk about that just briefly.
So the map that I've handed you has 3 orange X's on that map. If you'll take a look at the X that's furthest right to the right of the page, that X with the text box above it, 1819 bus stop, that is the location of the bus stop last year. This is where Mrs. George would like for us to move it back to that location this year. When the district implemented the initial stance of not to travel any roads that required a bus to turn around, you'll notice that's marked with the X that's furthest to the top of the page with the text box that says original/proposed. And as Dr. Morse was explaining after we went through and looked at speed limits, traffic volumes, safety issues, if you can tell just to the left of that, there's a curve on 1488. So we felt like we needed to move children off of that particular intersection. So one of the stops is that X that's towards the furthest down, which the text box says the current bus stop, which is on the corner of Deepwoods Drive and Alford Road. And so that's what this map represents, where it was last year, where it was initially, and then after looking at it, where we moved it closer to Mrs. George's granddaughter's residence.
And thank you again, we just thought it would be beneficial for you to see the very.
Dr. Morris, can I just stop 1 second? Mrs. George, is this an accurate depiction?
It is.
It is? Are you okay with this being looked at by the board as an accurate description of where the buses were?
Yes.
Okay.
It was included in my initial complaint 1, level 1.
Great, thank you.
During this process, Ms. George has postured many topics for discussion and posed a myriad of questions associated with items that are tangentially linked to the sole reason we're here tonight, such as administrative versus board decisions, budgetary items, procedural items, bus safety standards, bus fleet age, and so forth. We feel as if we have given a reasonable effort to answer her questions, and we would be more than happy, I know I can speak for Dr. Bullock, Mr. Deavies, and of course myself, in suggesting that we would be happy to sit down with her in another setting and answer any other questions that she may have in terms of about the district's policies, procedures, but again, for the purposes of this grievance hearing, we believe it is important to focus on the issue on appeal before the board tonight. And again, as a reminder, that is that Ms. George would like her granddaughter's bus stop to be directly in front of her house where it was previously located. We feel that we have appropriately accommodated her via the adjustment already made this school year prior to the start of school for the bus stop location. We cannot move the stop to Ms. George's preferred location without offering the same concession to our other parents and guardians. With that, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the administration. Mr. Deavies and I are here to answer any questions by the board.
All right, thank you. So the level 3 appeal presentations are now concluded. So now I will ask the rest of our board members what questions you might have.
So you did mention that you wanted some information about how decisions were reached and what some of the weight was that was given to things. Based on what Dr. Morris just said, would you feel that that has been offered to you at this point on the go forward, whatever you didn't have before?
My level 1 remedy was never responded to. I was told it was granted, but when I asked for specific information, such as if it was done, when it was done, would that information be communicated? I got no response. But that was a remedy that I was granted. So when asked about my second part of the remedy, which is my granddaughter's stop, I asked that it be reinstated for her safety based on the standards within the code. So if the code is different from outside of 2-mile radius, then that's information that is not defined within the board's policies. The 2-mile radius defined by the TEA code states that there's no sidewalks as one of the hazards. But that states within a 2-mile radius. So my question would be is, where's the definition for what's outside the 2-mile radius? Because that's what's being told to me is the standard that's being used as to why my granddaughter's stop was moved. Or is safe for where it's at. Not that why it was moved. I apologize, that's wrong. I understand why it was moved. It was moved to save dollars. So again, my question is did we save dollars to risk children? And if the policy is different outside the 2-mile radius, where is that documented? And how does that is that supported? Did I answer your question?
Well, just so we're clear, what the bottom line remedy that you're wanting is to have the location moved back in front of your granddaughter's house. That's it, regardless of what else we're talking about, that's what you're wanting tonight.
It's a cul-de-sac,
Because
and yes.
that's what we're voting, that's what we're talking about, that's
Yes.
what we're trying to determine.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at your proposed remedies in your level 1. And remedy 1 was, I would like bus stops that require students to walk over 2,640 feet reevaluated for the safety of the students. And remedy 2 was, I would like Kayla's bus stop location reinstated to the location that it has been for years.
Correct. And again, my granddaughter's stop is over 2,000 feet. It's 3,117 feet. So my granddaughter's stop should have qualified within that review of the 3,000 feet. So
And
I was
after a
given-
reevaluation, 13 bus stops were changed after this
correct, yes.
remedy was asked for?
Correct. And of course, review doesn't necessarily dictate change.
Right.
Right,
It's part
right,
of the
right.
review process for
That was
safety.
prior to my request.
Okay.
The 13 bus stops were changed prior to my Remedy 1 being approved.
In your review that you did, were all bus stops reviewed regardless of whether they were 26, 40 feet or?
Correct. What we do is I'd love to say even on a daily basis, we continue to review bus stops.
So this remedy then probably was already granted before it was asked for, you just didn't know that yet? It was a cart before the horse?
Then why wasn't that communicated to me rather than saying that the remedy was being granted? Why wasn't it already communicated that that was already done? If it was done prior to my request, which is fine, then why was that not communicated in my Remedy 1, in my Level 1 complaint response? The response said it was being granted, not that it was completed.
And it was granted then, the reevaluation was done. So the remedy still on the table is the bus stop relocation.
Correct.
And it sounds like you're saying it's an ongoing process.
It is an ongoing process, yes.
So it's evergreen, it's an evergreen process where you continue to look at bus stops based on comments from parents or bus drivers?
Correct, yes.
And the bus route continues down this road? Which direction does the bus go?
It continues south, if you're looking at the map.
Okay.
It continues south, and actually it's cut off, but it gets to a T, and that's where we placed a second bus stop, but there's streets that are further down that kids travel up to that T.
And I was gonna ask, because I think somebody had mentioned that kids were walking 2.5 miles at one point. So that's where the second bus stop is.
Correct.
So they're not walking that far to go all the way to Alfred Road and 1488.
Correct.
So now the bus stop is at Alfred, multiple, I guess there's 2 bus stops?
There's 2 bus stops.
So it's
correct.
Alfred Road and Deep Woods Drive.
Correct.
And then the road comes to a T and it's Alfred Road and, I don't know the name
I
of it.
could look it up.
down
I don't know the name right offhand, but it's, yes.
How many kiddos do you pick up at that stop?
I don't have that answer right now. Which, at both stops?
No, at the one where it got moved to. So
The
the
T.
current bus stop at Deep Woods and
In Alfred Road.
Alford Road.
I don't know how many students actually ride, but if my memory serves me correctly from looking at the route sheet, there's a possible of, I believe, about 9 to 10 that could potentially ride. Now, whether they ride in with their parent or they actually get on the bus stop, I don't know that information right now.
Dr. Morris, when it talks about in here on the level 2 complaint response, when it says remedy 1 was granted, is part of that moving the bus stop from 1488 to that corner? When you
That's
say,
certainly part of the process as a whole, in looking at remedy number 1,
Okay.
Dr. Moffitt, in terms of our review based on distance from home and also local safety standards. Yes, sir. And like Joe mentioned, I mean, perhaps the most aggressive part of the review had already been accomplished at that time prior to the beginning of school, which is when this adjustment was made.
Right.
And then it's ongoing, I think is kind of the way that we view that, for sure. Yes, sir.
Would you happen to know if there are other, I know, Joe, you didn't remember the numbers, but Deep Woods Drive, would you happen to know if there are other students that live along that same road as her granddaughter that are picked up at that stop?
I would have to go back and look at the route and where they're coming from. I don't know.
Do you mean the original stop?
No,
At the
current
At the
stop.
end or the current?
The current stop. I just wondered
How
if
many
there's
are
other,
walking that street?
if there's other kiddos on that
Is what
street
it
being
says.
picked up at that current stop. Because they could come from any direction. I guess that
Yes.
road or
Right.
south of Alford, north on
Correct.
Alford, and
Yeah,
so forth.
correct. Yeah, all 3 directions.
Do we know how many were at the original stop, the 1819 year at the end of Deep Woods Drive?
No, I do not. Again, that's information that is in our routing software that I could go back and pull up, but I have it memorized. No,
Sure.
I don't have it.
Do you recall any other children waiting with your granddaughter?
At the 1774 location?
No, I'm
Or
sorry.
or at her current stop?
Back during this 1819 school year? in front of the house?
Oh, only her.
Okay,
So she would have to walk that distance by herself.
okay.
Do you happen to know if there's other students that catch the bus off of that street with
I
her?
do not. I know that there are, right now, 6 to 7 cars at the end of the street when, because now all the cars have to kind of converge to the street and wait for the bus to be present. And I know there's 6 or 7 cars that sit there on a daily basis waiting for the bus to come.
They could come from any direction, they don't,
They could.
right.
And again, because they're sitting in one T, 6 or 7 cars, that's a separate hazard. Which is the same type of hazard that was at the one route where so many cars were sitting that the emergency fire trucks and the emergency vehicles couldn't get into that subdivision.
So now you would say that if a route picks up in front of someone's house, it just is happenstance because of where, I know it never stopped in front of my house. I live on a cul-de-sac, so that was never an issue. But, so it's just happenstance.
Correct.
Where
So
they stopped.
if there was somebody who lived on the corner of Alford and Deepwood that had a child that went to school, then it would be in front of the house, not for any other reason, but coincidence.
Just where the stop is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And after the reviews of, I guess it's the evergreen process, when you're reviewing all the other bus stops, the best location you came up with was the Deep Woods and Alford, I guess based on it being a T there and population that could walk to it?
Right, I think there was a couple that the population of potential riders, because not everybody rides. And 2, because of the length of that street Alford Road, and as it goes further back, we felt like Deepwood and then down at the T, it kind of split the neighborhood up somewhat evenly to where, obviously you can't make it to where every kid walks
Right.
exactly the same distance, but somewhat equitable to travel to the bus stop.
And then that prevented everybody having to walk all the way to the end of Alford Road in 1488.
Correct.
Okay. So it makes sense that you split it up. It seems to.
Anybody got any other questions?
I just have one question on the reference to the 2-mile radius. And is that rule is a 2-mile radius from a school or from schools?
It is.
Can you remind me what that is?
Yes,
I've heard
that's,
us talk about it
at the
before.
beginning of every school year, and you'll probably remember every August, the transportation director will come to you and ask you to approve the hazardous areas in our district based within the 2 miles, and that was how we were allotted, I believe it was 10% as opposed to 0 by deeming it a hazardous area, and I believe that TEA came up with that definition for inside the 2-mile radius of a school for those funding purposes to determine that who got 15% and where for that reason.
Because we do offer transportation to kids that live directly across the street from the school.
And there's many districts who do not, or
Right.
they've shortened it to 1 mile and so forth.
And so that's
Yes.
what that's really designating, because there's, okay.
So that would be the example of Nichols Sawmill
Exactly.
Elementary and the neighborhood that's right directly across from Nichols Sawmill Elementary. Is that why that's why we pick up?
Correct.
Because
Yeah, you
that's
don't
a
want 'em
hazard.
Yeah, you don't want them walking across Nichols Sawmill.
Yeah, Nichols Sawmill Road, especially in the morning.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
I'm good.
Joe, it may have been asked already, but, I mean, what's the average distance kids are walking to the bus stop right now? Like, if you just had to ballpark it for the district?
You know, that would be very difficult because, again, every situation is different. You know, so some kids do walk 0.6 of a mile, some kids do walk a mile, some kids it's in front of their house. I mean, I really do think that around that half mile is pretty close to average. I had to throw something out there.
And after you reviewed all the other bus stops, as part of this process, you've avoided the turnarounds and the courts, or circles,
Cul-de-sac.
cul-de-sacs, thank you.
Right, so our original stance was to no turnarounds, and that's where we started. We felt like if we started there, we knew there was going to be some exceptions to the rules, such as the 13 that we changed at the time of the level 1 grievance. We did make some exceptions, obviously 2 of them here in this particular street, Alford Road. So we have not eliminated them totally, again, because we knew there was going to be exceptions, like there's a curve there on 1488, there's railroad tracks, there's that curve and high volume of traffic. Again, every stop poses a different challenge, if you will, and so we had to make some concessions and bring those in, but we felt it would be it's better to start without here and bring it in than to try and start here and move it out.
Any more questions?
You had multiple factors you took into account when you did the reevaluation of the bus routes?
Correct, like in this particular one.
Speed limits and
the
all of
curve,
that?
The volume of traffic. We did move, as was said earlier, from the Decker Hill, we moved those in. You're talking about 3 buses that pick up, and so the volume of students, I mean, you're probably talking 40, 50 cars at that intersection. If I had to guess, I don't know that for sure, but you're talking about 100 and something kiddos that ride those 3 buses. And so, yes, we brought those in and put them in 3 strategic locations within that subdivision, so that you would have three groups of cars as opposed to 1 group in the very front. So,
That's what you meant by the work in progress. You were guessing how many kids were going to ride before they actually started riding. So
correct.
you
That's
made
part of the
adjustments
route.
based on that.
Right. If a kid lives in our district, we have to route for them to ride, us knowing that, you know, there's probably going to be roughly a 20% that may not ride on. Some neighborhoods are different than others. Inverness is a neighborhood that relies heavily on transportation to get to and from school. And so that, you know, we may have a 95% of those kids that ride, but in most other subdivisions or areas, we can usually route for, if a bus holds 77, we can route for about 90, 95, knowing that it's not going to be overloaded. And then if it is, we also will start leveling buses, as obviously we don't want overloaded buses.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay. You guys? Okay, I will now instruct the members of the board regarding the proper process of reaching a decision in the appeal. Having heard the level 3 appeal, the board has the following options. The board may vote to grant the appeal, which means we believe the appeal has merit and the relief requested should be granted. We also may vote to deny the appeal, which means that we believe the administration acted appropriately and the relief requested should be denied. And finally, we may grant in part or deny in part, in other words, both, any or all of the relief requested, which I think we clearly understand what that is. So, throughout the decision-making process, the board should consider only the complaint presentation and reply presented tonight at this meeting and the local record of this grievance. We're not to consider any statement or other information that we may have heard outside of this hearing. So with that, do we have a motion regarding the grievance?
I move to affirm the district decision from below.
Pardon me?
I said I move to affirm the decision of the district from below.
Okay, so we have a motion, and we need to take a vote on that motion. All of those in favor of that motion? Any opposed? That motion passes. This appeal is concluded. Thank you very much.
Dr. Bullock, how do I get a copy of the appeal so that when I report it to the TEA, I can have a copy of it?
I'll follow up with you on that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, the board will now recess to move into closed executive session for the purposes permitted by pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.072, discussion of purchase or sale, exchange or value of real property. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, personnel discussion and recommendations.
Bought a couple of copies of Audubon magazine to read if I got through that.
The old wild bird one?
Yeah.
Okay, we need a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
From last board meeting.
Motion by Chuck, seconded by Sonia. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Time is 11:20.
Good night, John Boy.
All right.